Chapter 12:21. At this moment, the scenery around them was like a real starry sky. There were stars everywhere, boundless and boundless. It was as if they were really in the universe. Damn it, are we really trapped here? Someone roared madly, unwilling to give up, and attacked the void. However, their attacks seemed to have sunk into the sea, not causing any waves. Next, they tried various methods, but they could not find the way back. It was as if they had really been exiled into the void of the universe. Gradually, they seemed to have lost track of time. No one knew how long had passed. From what they knew, it seemed like a month had passed. At this time, the heavenly netherbird outside had already entered, but the star pavilion they were in did not receive any attacks, nor did they find any movements. Therefore, they really did not know what was happening outside. Gradually, 1 month, 2 months, 1 year, 2 years, everyone was completely lost in the starry sky. In the end, they decided that they could not sit still and wait for death. They had to find a way out. Therefore, they set off in one direction. This time, they would not stop until they got out. However, they seemed to have walked for 3 years, but they still could not see the end. This made countless people despair, and many people even had white hair overnight. No, if this continues, I'm afraid we will really die here. A few of the elders from the king families were worried, because they found that the spiritual energy and vitality in their bodies were quickly disappearing. Even some of the older ones' vitality had begun to wither. Now everyone no longer had the fighting spirit they had before. All they had was endless despair and fear. Lin Xian seemed to have become silent. He had been trying to find a way out, but he had tried all of them, and none of them had succeeded. Fortunately, he had the great dragon sword soul in his body, which allowed him to stay awake at all times. Therefore, he did not lose his fighting spirit like the others around him. However, it was not a solution to continue like this. Lin Xian, do you have any ideas? Are we really going to be trapped here until we die? Zhao Shui also frowned. On the other side, Morong Qingqing also pulled a long face, and did not say a word. Don't worry, things are not as bad as we think. Although it seems like many years have passed, it hasn't actually been that long. What did you find? Upon hearing Lin Xian's words, Morong Qingqing asked in confusion. Although the blood and qi of those elders has withered and become incomparably old, have you all noticed that our cultivation hasn't increased by much? It is true that those elders have aged. However, we are all quite talented. Under normal circumstances, we would have reached the 8th or 9th heavenly layer of exalted realm in 30 to 50 years. But now, our cultivation is still stuck at the same place. Don't you think it's strange? As soon as these words came out, it immediately woke up many people, especially Morong Qingqing and Zhao Shui. Their bodies trembled, and a trace of shock appeared in their eyes. That's right. Lin Xian was right. With our aptitude, I'm afraid we would have already advanced. But now they didn't advance, which meant that there was a problem with the timing. If there was a problem with time, it meant that what they had experienced before was an illusion. It's not all an illusion. At least our mental states have changed, Lin Xian explained. However, he didn't say anything after that. Instead, he began to comprehend again, because he seemed to have found some clues. The endless starry sky, the vast universe, lost oneself. Could this be an examination of one's will? Lin Xian guessed. It was very likely. After such a long time, if one's will wasn't firm enough, they would have collapsed long ago. It could be seen from the surrounding cultivators. However, he remained firm and didn't waver. But he still didn't walk out of the starry sky. In other words, this wasn't an examination of one's will. Then what is it? Lin Xian frowned. He kept looking around at the starry sky and fell into endless thought. He wanted to ask Zero, but he gave up in the end. He had to rely on himself for this matter. However, it was this process that made his heart skip a beat. Zero was in the mysterious space in his body, and the mysterious space in his body was in the sword-shaped pendant. It was a miracle in itself. A finger-sized sword-shaped pendant actually contained a world. It was even bigger than the space opened up by those ancient powerhouses. It was really amazing. A flower, a world, and everything had a spirit. Lin Xian's eyes became brighter and brighter. He seemed to have grasped the key. The vast starry sky was endless, and the universe was even more boundless. However, it was very likely that it was just a leaf or a flower. It was even possible that the entire universe was contained in a pavilion. Lin Xian also had a magical world in his body. That world also had endless space. Thinking of this, the corners of his mouth curled up into a confident smile. I am the universe, and the universe is me. This is both real and illusory. After saying that, Lin Xian took a step forward. This step seemed to cross time and space, as if he had stepped through eternity. In the next moment, light appeared around Lin Xian. The scene was no longer a vast starry sky, but an ordinary pavilion. We're out. Lin Xian was extremely excited. He looked up and found that it was an empty hall that could accommodate everyone. Everyone else was in the center of the hall. Their bodies were like statues, and everyone had a confused look on their faces. There was a huge star pattern under their feet. They had all gone out, but they had never stepped out of the star pattern. Is this a formation? Lin Xian looked ahead and was extremely shocked. But very quickly he denied this thought. Because it didn't look like an array, it looked more like a painting. No way, a painting can actually create such a terrifying scene. It's as if it's real. Everyone is lost in it. This method is too terrifying. Lin Xian felt his scalp go numb. What kind of terrifying powerhouse would have to have such a heaven-defying method? After getting rid of the distracting thoughts in his mind, the most important thing now was to find the key to the astral chains. He looked around and found a stone platform in front of him. On the stone platform, there was a blue stone that looked like a real star fragment. Could this be the key to the astral chains? Lin Xian's heart skipped a beat. He quickly came to the front of the stone platform, and then grabbed the blue stone in his hand. The stone didn't have any tough edges. It felt warm to the touch. Just as Lin Xian picked up the blue stone, the people in the hall behind him screamed. It's gone. The stars have disappeared. Oh my God, we're saved. Thank the heavens for giving me a chance to be reborn. The group of people was extremely excited. They felt as if they had just survived a disaster. Where's Lin Xian? Chapter 1222. Over there. Zhao Shui stretched out her jade-like hand and pointed to the front. Then, everyone looked forward and realized that Lin Xian was indeed there. Could it be that Lin Xian was the first to come out? In that case, as the formation master from the Palace of Gods of War everyone was astonished and shocked in their hearts. The elder from the Morong family suddenly opened his eyes. Even so many elders and seniors did not come out. It's us. But Lin Xian, the formation master from the Palace of Gods of War, walked out with 3 martial artists. Lin Xian only smiled at this question. He didn't want to be misunderstood and be attacked by those people. It's you. This is a starry sky people pattern. Present recognized the Morong family elder exclaimed. Among them, this pattern the elder from the Morong family soon frowned. A group of formation masters trying to break the formation. However, in the Pine they Pavilion? Realized that it was not a formation that they knew of. To be honest, it was a formation of a higher level to break. However, our people are familiar divine with it, dragon shook but his they can't break it in a short period of time. There was even a tinge of fear in his eyes. I think we should work together not a formation and break the formation together. It's just a pattern. This way, damn it. We can definitely have such a heaven-defying method before the sky netherbird comes because he could not do such a thing. All die here. What? I knew you couldn't break it. You're saying that have to do with pattern all along. The formation everyone was shocked and could not believe it coldly. After hearing this news, you guys were the ones who insisted on splitting beyond words. And now you want to join up. Just a pattern had trapped the Palace of Gods of War. If not for Lin Xian, everyone, they would have been trapped here for the rest of their lives. Even the elder from the Merry Woods was displeased. How could he have such terrifying means? They were all king families. The royal family elders the Palace of Gods of War. Even a king would not have such a method. What right did they have to listen beyond words? I know that both of your families are filled with mystery and strangeness. But now is not the time to be loyal. Did you get the key to the starry sky chain? Broken. None of you looked at Lin Xian. You're thinking too much. Lin Xian opened his palm, about our business, revealing the blue stone. The elder from the Morong family coldly refused. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. The others also sneered, fortunately, as if they didn't care they had about encountered some dangerous situations. You guys are a bunch of idiots to the starry sky chain. Don't you know what kind of danger you're in? They would have some confidence in facing the formation master from the Palace of Gods of War was furious. Everyone left the Star Pavilion. Since you guys don't want to cooperate, they needed to do was to wait for the heavenly netherbird. When we break the formation, Lin Xian had succeeded. But the situation at Song Pavilion was not optimistic. Ever since the last time, the cultivators from the Morong family had been researching nonstop and finally found out the other party's threat. So they hurriedly took action. One had to know that they had already broken the formation and obtained even more powerful than they'd imagined. When the time comes, thus in the past few days, to say who would beg they'd only managed to break through a small part of it. The elders were worried. If they wanted to completely break through it, are we really not going to cooperate with them? 2 to 3 months. Hearing this, Lin Xian shook his head. The heavenly netherbird if we don't open the Pine Pavilion. 7-star formation. Otherwise, if we destroy the control room, we'll be in trouble. It was impossible for them to complete it within half a month. I'm afraid that the heavenly netherbird will come in early. Everyone's face was incomparably gloomy. We won't be able to control the star beast. No, we don't have enough people. Then we'll have no way to survive. We won't be able to break the formation. The other elders nodded. Why don't we go look for the people from the Morong family was very important, and they couldn't destroy it by working together. If that's the case, we'll be able to quickly break the spell. Well, stay here and watch. Frowned and said in a low voice. But I hope that the star keys can really control the heavenly netherbird. Very quickly, a few martial artists ran towards the Star Pavilion. This small team was led by a formation master and 3 7th-rank supremacies. They were very fast and soon arrived near the Star Pavilion. However, in the next moment they were stunned. This was because they'd expected the other party to be the same as them, unable to break the formation. But now, it seemed that something was amiss. This was because those people were sitting cross-legged on the ground, silently cultivating. However, they didn't have any anxious expressions on their faces. This made them very surprised. One had to know that they were about to go crazy over there. But there was no movement from this side at all. It was really too strange. Chapter 12:23. Also, we won't fight the heavenly netherbird head-on. We just need to hold it back. After all, it won't be long before we're transported out. As long as we can hold on for a while, we can leave safely. The day they left was around the same time as the heavenly netherbird's arrival, which was 3 to 5 days later. As long as they could hold on for a few days, they would be transported out. On the other side, the array master from the Palace of Gods of War angrily returned to the Tsongsong Pavilion. He told them what had happened, which immediately caused those people to be dissatisfied. What? You're saying that the Morong clan didn't cooperate? Damn it, those idiots. They don't want to live anymore. If we don't need them, well, break it ourselves. As long as we break the array, they'll definitely kneel down and beg us. The people from the Palace of Gods of War were furious. Then, they gathered everyone to break the array. They all began to act. They didn't dare to hold back anymore. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, the day of the heavenly netherbird's arrival arrived. The Tsongsong Pavilion had been busy for half a month, but they still couldn't break the array. Now they were like frosted eggplants. Each of them sat on the ground with a face of despair. The Star Pavilion. Lin Xian opened his eyes and adjusted himself to his peak state. He knew that they would soon have to face the heavenly netherbird. This was a matter of life and death. If they could hold on, then they could leave safely. Otherwise, they would all die here. Fortunately, they weren't completely unprepared. At least he still had the stellar key in his hand. And after half a month of research, he could already control the stellar key. Not only that, he also had the Tsongsong sword. This was something that the heavenly netherbird was wary of. Thinking about it, these two together could restrain the heavenly netherbird. If it really didn't work, he could still control the Thousand Beast Cauldron. This was his biggest trump card. After all, the Thousand Beast Cauldron was a complete Earth-rank artifact. It also had a special suppressive effect on monsters. Although he couldn't use the full power of the Thousand Beast Cauldron with his current strength, it could still be useful. After all, Lin Xian's goal wasn't just to restrain the heavenly netherbird. He also wanted its essence blood and black flames. The sky was clear and cloudless. However, it suddenly became gloomy. Countless gusts of wind blew, emitting demonic sounds. Suddenly, everyone felt an oppressive aura. It was as if a peerless demon had been born. That aura made them despair. Bang bang bang. After that, a deep voice rang out. Then, the entire Pine Palace shook violently, as if the sky was falling, and the earth was splitting apart. Immediately after, a low voice sounded in everyone's ears. Lowly worms, have you completed your mission? Hearing this voice, many of the martial artists in Pine Pavilion began to tremble. This was because they had not completed their mission. On the Star Pavilion's side, Lin Xian and the others held their breaths. They had obtained the star key, but that didn't mean that they would obediently hand it over to the heavenly netherbird. However, if they didn't hand it over to the heavenly netherbird, it would definitely be angered. Thus, everyone was extremely nervous. Bang! The Big Dipper array finally dimmed as the heavenly netherbird tore a huge crack in it. The heavenly netherbird finally tore it apart. Then, the heavenly netherbird's huge body crashed into the Big Dipper array and appeared in front of everyone. Roar! A terrifying roar echoed throughout the 9 heavens and 10 earths. It was as if the entire secret realm was about to be overturned. Countless black flames swept out in all directions like black waves, accompanied by a terrifyingly hot aura. Just the aura from the heavenly netherbird was enough to make them unable to breathe. Someone actually obtained the star key. The heavenly netherbird revealed a surprised expression. Ha 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 ha, good good good. You didn't disappoint me. A loud voice rang throughout the Pine Palace. What, they obtained the star key? How is that possible? Could it be that they broke the ancient array? Hearing the heavenly netherbird's words, everyone from the Palace of Gods of War was stunned. Originally, they thought that the Morong clan was the same as them and hadn't broken the array. That was why they had given up and refused to cooperate with them. But now it seemed that they were completely wrong. The other party wasn't giving up. They were clearly confident. Because they had already broken the array, they didn't need to cooperate with them. They had already completed the heavenly netherbird's mission. Now they were the ones in danger. No, we can't just sit here and wait for death. Hurry and meet up with those people. The group of people were terrified. They knew that the star key was their last hope. In the next moment, all the cultivators from the Pine Palace ran with all their might towards the Star Pavilion. The heavenly Netherbird didn't pay any attention to these cultivators. He was currently staring at the people from the Star Pavilion, but he was actually staring at Lin Xian. This was because he could feel that the star key was in Lin Xian's hands. So it was you. No wonder I didn't know beforehand. You were a fish that slipped through the net. The heavenly Netherbird was indeed surprised. This was because he had planted the black flame mark in everyone's body. As long as someone obtained the star key, he would be able to sense it. However, there were two exceptions. They were Lin Xian and Zhao Shui. They didn't have the black flame mark. So even if Lin Xian obtained the star key, the heavenly Netherbird wouldn't know. Kid, I have to say that you've surprised me. First, you were able to enter the Big Dipper formation without anyone noticing. Now you've obtained the star key. Your strength has exceeded my expectations. Now give me the star key and I can spare your life. The heavenly Netherbbird's voice resounded. However, Lin Xian shook his head. You want the key? Sure, but you have to let them go first. Lin Xian pointed at the surrounding cultivators. Suddenly, the surrounding cultivators were shocked. They looked at Lin Xian with eyes full of gratitude. This was because they didn't expect that Lin Xian would let them go first. This was to protect them. Flowly Worm. You have no right to negotiate with me. Hearing Lin Xian's words, the heavenly Netherbird was displeased. Who was he? He was an ancient demonic beast. Even a king-level demonic beast wouldn't be able to do anything to him. But now, a lowly worm dared to negotiate with him. This was simply courting death. Do you believe that if you anger me, I can kill all of you with a single palm? The heavenly Netherbird's voice was cold as he stared at Lin Xian. I'll give you one last chance. Obediently give me the star key, or you'll all die. Chapter 1224. Lin Xian's expression turned serious when he heard about the heavenly netherbird's danger. But at this moment, an angry shout came from behind. Lin Xian and the others were extremely nervous. The stellar key to the heavenly nether now had almost scared them to death. What are you hesitating for? It was simply too dangerous. Do you want to get us killed? If Lin Xian hadn't controlled the sky serene hand over the stellar key, then it would have been impossible for him to survive that attack. The martial artists from the Palace of Ares and the Palace of Divine Birds, he didn't know if the sky serene bird would agree to his conditions. They couldn't care less. Stopped. Even if Lin Xian was a rank 8 honored warrior, everyone felt as if thousands of years had passed. They still had to make him hand over the stellar key. He said in a deep voice, no one could resist the heavenly netherbird's anger. You can all leave now. The martial artists allowed the cultivators from the merry woods were all furious to heave a sigh of relief. The people from the Palace of Ares were too despicable. They didn't even get through the gates of hell. What right did they have to scold? They were saved in the end. Lin Xian, what about you? What right do you have to criticize us? Extremely worried. That's right, Lin Xian led us to get the stellar key. Lin Xian couldn't leave right now. What we do is up to Lin Xian. If he were to face the sky serene bird alone, Lin Xian's face was also unimaginable. He stared at the people from the Palace of Ares and sneered. Lin Xian smiled at you go, but you're so despicable. He turned to Zhao Shui to threaten me at this moment. You go with them. It seems that I was too soft. I want to stay and help you. Hearing Lin Xian's words, shook her head. The people from the Palace of Ares felt their hearts beat wildly here. They had a bad feeling in their hearts. Isn't something that we can fight against. What do you want to do? Zhao Shui still wanted to say something. Don't mess around. But she was interrupted by Lin Xian. You won't have a good ending. Don't worry, I'm confident. A bunch of idiots. All right, then you have to come back at this moment. Zhao Shui nodded. It seems that you don't know how to write the word death. You have to be careful. Lin Xian looked at them and smiled reluctantly to leave. Hearing Lin Xian's words, she knew that the martial artists from the Palace of Ares, so she didn't hesitate. Stand on end. Then they had a bad feeling and quickly left the Pine Palace. To happen. On the other side, the people from the Palace of Gods of the Morong clan were shocked and said in a deep voice, "Let these people go." They didn't think that the sky serene bird would actually compromise. For those people, you can do whatever you want with them. The hope of escaping surged in their hearts. From the Palace of Gods of War. They also wanted to leave this place. Lin Xian's words caused the expressions of those from the Palace of Gods of War forcibly stopped them drastically. Damn it! It was as if they had fallen into a bottomless abyss. If the sky tired of living really agreed to Lin Xian's request, roared crazily, then they would be in deep trouble. This was the best time to leave. For a moment, if they didn't everyone's now, faces were pale and filled with despair. At that time, however, they wouldn't be able to fight their hopes on the heavenly nether-bird because there was only one outcome waiting for them. It was a peerless ancient beast. How could they not be angry? Compromise? Did I say you could leave? The heavenly nether-bird looked at them and snorted. Its eyes were filled with cold, killing intent. Was furious. Ignorant human, his expression was ferocious. I will let you know the consequences of provoking me. The Palace of Gods of War will let you go? Black claw at Lin Xian. Suddenly, the entire void cracked. Do you think you'll let me go if you leave? Was about to hit Lin Xian. I won't let you go for nothing. But Lin Xian still didn't dodge. Duan Tianqing asked and took out a blue stone. They didn't have much time left. He cast a spell into it. It's simple. Instantly. By your life. The blue stone shone brightly and formed a mystical energy. Chapter 1225. In the next moment, you can have them all. Chains on the sky serene bird's body rattled and quickly coiled around it like a dragon. Or not is up to the sound of metal colliding rang out. It has nothing to do with sky serene bird's Don't even think about getting any benefits from us. You can actually control the astral voice was ferocious. How is this possible? If the heavenly netherbird wasn't here, the sky serene bird was extremely shocked. His men to fight Lin Xian. Its huge black claw stopped in midair and didn't swing down. He looked at the heavenly netherbird and asked, "It didn't think that a puny human who hadn't even reached the king realm could control the heavenly netherbird's voice was simply too inconceivable. These humans were no different from insects. He held the astral key. It didn't care whether they lived or died. Now, I have the only thing it cared about was the stellar key. The heavenly netherbird's bird remained silent as if it was deep in the others' faces to turn ugly. The atmosphere their eyes were filled with becoming more and more tense. They knew that this was equivalent to announcing their death sentence. If they couldn't satisfy Lin Xian, they would probably stay here forever. I'll give you 3 breaths of time to consider. Do you want the stellar key or the treasures? Make your choice. Duan Tianqing and the others' faces were ashen. They didn't dare to stay here because the heavenly netherbird was too terrifying. They couldn't fight against it. However, to ask them to hand over all their treasures was worse than death. One had to know that those treasures were true treasures. They had spent a lot of effort to collect them. Now they had to hand it all over to someone else. This made them unwilling. Elder Duan, do you want us to kill this brat together? Yanfeng gritted his teeth. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. However, Duan Tianqing shook his head. Give it to him. He didn't dare to make a move in front of the heavenly netherbird. If he angered it, it could kill them all with one slap. Elder Duan. Countless people roared when they heard Duan Tianxing's words. Living is more important than anything else. Once we die, we'll have nothing left. Everyone trembled as fear filled their eyes. That's right. They were all members of the royal family. They were all geniuses. They still had a lot of time to enjoy. They didn't want to die. In the end, these people gritted their teeth and threw all their storage rings to Lin Xian. With a wave of his hand, Lin Xian collected all the storage rings and put them into the white bone ring. Afterward, he extended his soul power and quickly scanned everyone. He was very satisfied with the result. No one dared to hide anything in front of him. Very well, you can scram now. Lin Xian withdrew his soul power and waved his hand impatiently. Brat, you will pay for what you did today. Duan Tianxing gnashed his teeth as he left. Because this time, it could be said that they had suffered great losses. They had lost all the treasures they had collected. However, Lin Xian merely shrugged and didn't care at all. These people were simply no match for him, so he didn't care whether they lived or died. Moreover, she had obtained countless treasures in exchange for his life. This was undoubtedly a huge gain for her. This was because these heavenly treasures could increase his cultivation and strength once again. Moreover, he could also use them to increase the cultivation of his friends. It could be said that this deal was a win-win situation. After Duan Tianxing and the others left, only the heavenly netherbird and Lin Xian were left. Lin Xian didn't rush to speak. Instead, he thought to himself. When he estimated that Morong Qingqing and the others had left, he looked at the heavenly netherbird. All right, brat, I've already fulfilled your conditions. Hurry up and give me the stellar key. The heavenly netherbird said coldly. It had already decided that once Lin Xian handed over the stellar key, it would kill him with one palm. This was because no one had ever negotiated with it before. However, Lin Xian smirked. No rush. You've agreed to the first condition, but now we need to talk about the second and third conditions. What? You dare to play with me? Hearing this, the heavenly netherbird was stunned, and then became extremely angry. This damned human worm dared to play with it. He really didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Damned worm, my patience is limited. I'll give you one last chance. Hand it over, or I'll make sure you die without a burial place. As it spoke, black flames filled the sky and dyed the entire space black. It was obvious that the heavenly netherbird was really angry. If Lin Xian's performance didn't satisfy it, it would probably become even angrier. However, Lin Xian was unmoved. He slowly said, I have two conditions. First, give me a drop of your essence blood. Second, I want a portion of your origin flame. Lin Xian stated his conditions. However, the heavenly netherbird was furious. Brat, you're courting death. It finally couldn't take it anymore. A puny human dared to raise conditions with it time and time again. He even dared to ask for its essence blood and origin flame. This was simply courting death. In the next moment, the heavenly netherbird waved its giant claw and viciously slammed it towards Lin Xian. The black claw tore through the void and expanded infinitely. It was like an ancient demonic mountain that pressed downwards. Below him, Lin Xian turned his body and quickly executed his movement skill. His speed reached the limit, and he was like a shocking rainbow as he retreated rapidly. Boom boom. The heavenly netherbbird's giant claw viciously slammed into the ground, causing the entire pine palace to shake violently. A terrifying crater was formed in an instant. This was too terrifying. One had to know that Lin Xian and the others couldn't even damage the structure of the pine palace in their previous battle. But now, the heavenly netherbird's casual attack caused the entire ground to collapse. One could only imagine how terrifying its strength was. However, it was fortunate that Lin Xian had an Earth-class movement technique and a pair of wind and thunder wings that helped him increase his speed. Therefore, the attack just now didn't hurt him at all. I don't think you need to be so agitated. The two things I want can't hurt you at all. As long as you give them to me, I'll give you the stellar key. Otherwise, I'm afraid that those stellar chains will accompany you forever. Despicable human die. The heavenly netherbird was furious. It would never agree to Lin Xian's conditions. In the next moment, It roared and the black flames on its body shot up into the sky. Endless black flames rushed towards Lin Xian. The black flames churned, and huge black palms appeared one after another grabbing forward. In an instant, the entire space was torn apart. Lin Xian didn't dare to take it head-on. He quickly used the Red Lotus armor to form the strongest defense. At the same time, he used the illusory demon steps to increase his speed to the extreme. Since Ming-1 isn't working, then don't blame me. Lin Xian snorted, and then activated the stellar key in his hand. Suddenly, the stellar chains on the heavenly netherbird's body clattered and tightened again. It was as if they were going to sink into the heavenly netherbird's body. Ah, damned human, how dare you hurt me? The heavenly netherbird was furious. It didn't think that a puny human would dare to attack it. It couldn't tolerate it. Chapter 1226. Ruffian Dragon. Lin Xian let out a furious roar before he came to a stop with much difficulty. Don't worry, I've already set it up. The dark red divine dragon's voice rang out as he waved his claws. Immediately, a huge array appeared in front of the heavenly netherbird and enveloped him. You want to stop me with just a broken array? How ignorant. It'll let you know the consequences of angering me. The heavenly Netherbird's voice was cold, and many of his bones were broken. Domineering aura. It was too terrifying. Then, he slammed into the array in front of him. The energy. Immediately, moreover, the light screen formed was wearing the red lotus like glass. But he was still severely injured. I've already said that your methods are nothing in front of me. Indeed an ancient Since you dare to provoke me, this kind of attack was definitely not something the heavenly Netherbird could looked at Lin Xian. Lin Xian controlled the divine dragon with a cruel smile and quickly retreated to avoid being affected again. His smile disappeared. Moreover, this was because the broken array had reformed and formed a new light screen that enveloped him. One could see the difference between Lin Xian and other exalts. It's not that easy to break through my array. The dark red divine dragon snorted. If my dragon essence were left in his body, you wouldn't be so arrogant. He was too depressed. He was injured. Originally, the remaining medicinal he was not weaker than the heavenly Netherbird and repairing now that he had lost his dragon essence, if it were anyone else, he could not. They would not be able to move after this attack. He could only rely on the remaining medicinal to delay the heavenly Netherbird's attack, coupled with the amazing recovery ability of the art of longevity. Stopped the heavenly Netherbird. In the next moment, Lin Xian's eyes shone brightly. Had recovered 70 to 80%. He was like a sword god as a huge sword aura surged from his body. The heavenly Netherbird was very surprised. Gale lightning sword, fourth sword, heaven and earth aftermath of the black fireball. Lin Xian used his most powerful attack as soon as he attacked. However, 4 giant swords was formed in the sky. What a strange kid. Each of them was extremely terrifying. The heavenly Netherbird's face darkened an aura, and it waved to destroy the heavens and earth. Suddenly, then, the remaining black flames in the sky turned into countless black fire dragons and slashed towards the heavenly Netherbird. Boom. His surroundings were sealed once again. Thunder rumbled, as if the heavens and earth were falling apart. Lin Xian would not be able to escape. The entire void was collapsing rapidly. The dark red dragon was also power anxious. Of the 4 swords was too terrifying. Claws, even created a few formations to block some of the fire dragon in an instant. However, damn worm, you've really limited. However, it could not in the next moment, the fire dragon. The heavenly Netherbird's angry voice, although it was relieved, then Xian was still in great danger. With flames rose from the ground. Let's see how you escape this time. In the next moment, the heavenly Netherbird revealed a cruel smile, and the 4 gigantic swords were also sent flying. As long as he was hit by the shock furious. He would not be able to covered in black flames unless the opponent terrifying was a king. Attack just now did not break through its defense at all. Did not have the cultivation of a king. Lin Xian's actions therefore thoroughly infuriated him. The heavenly Netherbird thought that he was dead meat this time. The heavenly Netherbird raised its giant dragons rushing toward him from all directions, gathered to form a huge black fireball the size of a small mountain. He did not expect the heavenly Netherbird to be so powerful. The next moment, he was heavily injured as soon as they exchanged blows. This attack was too terrifying. It seemed that he could only use his trump card now. Experts would probably be unable to resist it. The 10,000 beast cauldron appeared in his hand. Lin Xian's pupil shrank. He held the 10,000 beast cauldron and charged forward. Could only dodge quickly. The 10,000 beast cauldron the blood sword had absorbed many terrifying flames in the cave. To quickly increase his Lin Xian's control, using the thunderstorm wings to fight against the black fire dragon. At the same time, the flames burned the sky limit, and the entire sky was covered in a sea of fire. Lin Xian used his ultimate movement technique. The terrifying temperature caused the entire void to crackle at the last moment. In the sky, however, the boundless sea of refined swords collided with the black flaming dragon, to dodge the aftermath of the energy to resound. The huge black fireball explosion was capable of annihilating a bottomless realm cultivator. Then countless waves of flames spread out in all directions. The black fire dragons. The impact was very wide. The heavenly Netherbird more than half of the pine forest was affected. It looked at the sky with a trace of surprise. No matter how fast Lin Xian was, he could not dodge it. Could it be? He was swept by the wave of black flames, and it was as if he was struck by lightning. After seeing the black fire dragons disappear, the heavenly Netherbird was sure that the flames were as it had guessed. Kid, you entered old Devil Song Song's weapon refining cave. Chapter 1227. The Sea of Flames was extremely terrifying. Even the heavenly Netherbird's black fire dragon was burned. One could only imagine how terrifying it was. This scene caused the heavenly Netherbird's expression to change. It asked in a deep voice, "Brat, did you enter the weapon refining cave before?" To be honest, the heavenly Netherbird was not too afraid of these flames. After all, it had its own ways to deal with them. However, it was afraid of the fact that the other party could subdue these flames. A human brat with only the cultivation of the 7th heavenly layer was able to subdue such terrifying flames. It couldn't help but be shocked. One had to know that the weapon refining cave had a peerless divine weapon that even it was afraid of. If the other party obtained that peerless divine weapon, the threat to it would increase greatly. However, Lin Xian sneered. "I know what you're afraid of. There's no need to guess. The sword is in my hands. So, as long as you obediently hand over the essence blood and the black flame, I can let you go." From the current situation, Lin Xian was certain that the heavenly Netherbird was afraid of the peerless divine sword in his hands. "Brat, you're too ignorant." The heavenly Netherbird sneered. "If it was old Devil Song who had that peerless divine sword back then, I might be very afraid. But now, with your cultivation, you can't pose any threat to me. Moreover, that peerless divine sword has been shattered. I'm very sure of this. So now, that broken sword is of no threat to me." Although the heavenly Netherbird's words were filled with disdain, its movements were not slow. It once again launched a fierce attack at Lin Xian. This time, Lin Xian did not use his own strength to resist. The difference between the two was too great. The heavenly Netherbird was a monster that even kings had to retreat from. He could not fight against it. Therefore, he used the Sea of Flames to resist the heavenly Netherbird. Although he was at a disadvantage, his life was not in danger for the time being. "Haha, you're afraid. Although you say you don't care, you care a lot in your heart. Otherwise, you wouldn't have launched such an attack." Lin Xian sneered. He now understood that the peerless divine sword in his hands was absolutely terrifying. Even if it was broken, the heavenly Netherbird was still afraid of it. In the distant past, the heavenly Netherbird must have suffered at the hands of this peerless divine sword. After figuring this out, Lin Xian no longer hesitated. He lightly patted the 1,000-beast cauldron with his palm, and a crisp sound immediately rang out. Clang! The 10,000-beast cauldron trembled, and a green longsword emerged from the cauldron. Ashen Pine Sword. The heavenly Netherbird's pupil shrank when she saw the jade sword. Lin Xian's guess was correct. He had indeed suffered a loss at the hands of this peerless divine sword, and it was a great loss. Back then, he had fought old Taoist Song to a standstill. Originally, with old Taoist Song's strength, they could only fight to a draw. However, it was precisely because he possessed the Ashen Pine Sword that Tianyu was defeated. It could be said that the bird hated and feared the Song Pine Sword at the same time. Now that he saw the sword again, he was naturally shocked. However, when he saw the sword clearly, he started laughing wildly. "Ha ha ha ha, I told you. The Song Pine Sword is already damaged. It can't unleash the power of the past." Indeed, the Song Pine Sword was broken in half, and the rest of the sword was covered in cracks. It looked like it would shatter at any moment. More importantly, old Taoist Song was no longer here. There was only a broken sword, and a 7th sky supremacy brat. They could not unleash the power of this peerless divine weapon. Therefore, the heavenly Netherbird was not worried at all. "Brat, no wonder you were so arrogant before. You even dared to talk about conditions with me. I guess this Song Pine Sword is your greatest trump card. Unfortunately, your trump card is useless against me. Now I'm going to send you on your way. Don't worry, I won't kill you immediately. I'll slowly torture you until you beg for death. This is what you get for messing with me." The heavenly Netherbird let out a sinister laugh. As an ancient demonic beast, he revealed his cruel nature. With that, he stretched out a finger and viciously pressed it down. From the looks of it, he wanted to crush Lin Xian like an ant. Lin Xian, on the other hand, took a deep breath, his expression extremely solemn. In the next moment, he crazily activated the great dragon sword soul in his body. Suddenly, Countless rays of sword qi rushed out like giant dragons and wrapped around his arm. Lin Xian stretched out his hand and grabbed the Tsang Pine sword. Buzz! The broken Tsang Pine sword seemed to have come alive. It emitted a dazzling light that dyed the entire space green. A terrifying sword aura erupted from the Tsang Pine sword and swept through the world. At this moment, the Tsang Pine sword had come alive. What, this is impossible. The smile on the heavenly Netherbird's face disappeared. His finger also stopped in the air. Shocking, this was too shocking. He did not expect the Tsang Pine sword to be able to fully recover. This was completely out of his expectations. One had to know that the Tsang Pine sword was an earth-rank treasure. This treasure was very powerful, but it also required a lot of energy. From what he knew, only kings and above could use earth-rank treasures. Therefore, he was not worried at all because Lin Xian was only a 7th rank supremacy. He could not use the Tsang Pine sword at all. But now he had done it. Not only did he do it, but he had also completely recovered the Tsang Pine sword. Damn it, how is this possible? What method did he use? A trace of panic appeared in the heavenly Netherbird's eyes. After all, the Tsang Pine sword had traumatized him too much. It's a bluff. It must be a bluff. How can a puny 7th rank supremacy completely recover the Tsang Pine sword? He must have used an illusion. Go to hell, brat. The heavenly Netherbird roared. Its huge claws were covered in endless black flames. Then it slammed down fiercely. A monster's physique was already very strong. In addition to the heavenly Netherbird's terrifying black flames, he did not need to use any spells. He only needed to use his Buddha's strength to cause endless destruction. Looking at the huge black claw descending from the sky, Lin Xian roared. Then, he waved his arm, and the Tsang Pine sword in his hand quickly slashed out. In the next moment, a dark green sword aura flashed. The entire sky seemed to have been dyed green. A green sword light was extremely sharp and quickly slashed forward. This sword qi was too terrifying. Even Lin Xian felt his heart palpitate in fear. This was because he had never seen such a sharp sword aura. He was afraid that only a king could use such an attack. The green sword aura slashed fiercely on the huge black claw. Then the heavenly Netherbird let out a miserable cry. The boundless black flames were cut open by the green sword aura. Even the huge black claw had a huge wound. One could even faintly see the white bones. Chapter 12:28. An endless amount of blood spurted out. Every drop could pierce through the void. The heavenly netherbird was indeed an ancient beast. The blood in its body was too powerful. The space could not withstand it at all. Seeing this scene, the dark red divine dragon was overjoyed. He quickly cast a formation and collected all the blood that dripped down. This was not the essence blood of the heavenly netherbird. It was just ordinary blood. However, it contained a shocking amount of energy. If he could collect enough blood, the dark red dragon god could refine it into essence blood. Therefore, he did not waste any of the blood. Instead, he collected as much as he could. Damned reptile, you think you can get my blood? Seeing this, the heavenly netherbird was enraged. He did not think that a worm would dare to covet his blood. He was courting death. In the next moment, the black flames on his palm rolled and quickly stopped the bleeding. Then, he looked at an Hong dragon god and snorted. Despicable worm die. An endless amount of demonic beast king aura surged towards the dark red dragon god. To the heavenly netherbird, the other party was just a small worm. He could not withstand his aura. In the next moment, the other party would be crushed into a bloody mist by the invisible aura. But soon he was stunned, because the dark red dragon god was completely fine. His aura was like a stone sinking into the sea. What? How is this possible? The heavenly netherbird was shocked. He realized that the two people in front of him were too strange. First, it was a mysterious brat who could control the Tsong Song sword. Now it was a worm who was not afraid of his aura. Impossible, how is this possible? Demonic beasts have a strict hierarchy. With my strength, just my aura alone is enough to crush him. But why is he fine? Did I sleep for too long? Has the world changed? The heavenly netherbird was extremely angry. As a demonic beast on the ancient heaven ranking, he was infamous in the ancient times. Even a king would have to bow down to him. But now, he had just broken out of his seal and suffered a great loss at the hands of two worms. He could not accept this. However, the dark red dragon god sneered. Stupid bird. You want to use your aura on me? You're too inexperienced. With that, he raised his head and roared at the heavenly netherbird. Suddenly, a deep dragon's roar rang out. Endless dragon aura swept through the 9 heavens and 10 lands. In the next moment, the heavenly netherbird's huge body trembled slightly. Impossible, how is this possible? The heavenly netherbird was shocked. He didn't think that a snake could make him tremble. This was not a suppression of power, but a suppression from the depths of his bloodline. This suppression of netherbird's heavenly netherbird. Dragons, this is dragon's aura. The heavenly netherbird's face was filled with shock as it stared at the dark red dragon. You're not a snake, you're a dragon. Of dragons of dragons of dragons of dragons of dragons of dragon of dragon of dragon of dragon of dragon A. Furthermore, judging from the other party's bloodline power, it seemed to be extremely pure. But soon he began to laugh wildly. Furthermore, it's a weak dragon clan. Little thing, wait until I eat you. Not only will I recover my strength, but my bloodline will also improve. By then, I might become another great Xia dragonfinch. The heavenly netherbird was too excited. He was the descendant of the great Xia dragonfinch, but the bloodline in his body was very thin. If he could obtain the bloodline of dragons, he might be able to become the great Xia dragonfinch again and reach the ancestral realm. Once he became the great Xia dragonfinch, he would be the true overlord of the world. No one would be able to stop him. Thinking of this, his eyes shone brightly. He clawed down with his terrifying claws, determined to catch the dark red dragon god. The dark red dragon god dodged quickly like a bolt of lightning. Stupid bird. Although I'm not as strong as before, I'm still not someone you can catch. The dark red dragon god snorted. Although his strength was greatly reduced, he still had countless secret techniques that allowed him to escape successfully. On the other side, Lin Xian slowly waved his ashen pine sword, preparing to attack again. He realized that as long as he injured the heavenly netherbird and allowed the dark red dragon god to collect enough blood, it would be able to condense essence blood. That way, he would have accomplished half of his goal. Furthermore, the dark red dragon god's actions had given him inspiration. Since blood could condense into essence blood, then the countless black flames could also condense into true origin flames. Therefore, Lin Xian held the ashen pine sword while activating the Thousand Beast Cauldron to absorb the black flames on the heavenly Netherbird's body. "You're courting death." The heavenly Netherbird was furious. He did not expect that not only did he not catch the dark red dragon god, but that brat also dared to target his flames. This made him furious. Therefore, he gave up on capturing the dark red dragon god and decided to kill Lin Xian first. After all, the ashen pine sword in his opponent's hand was still a great threat to him. Seeing the heavenly Netherbird's gaze shift again, Lin Xian did not hesitate. He quickly waved his ashen pine sword and slashed forward. Compared to the previous slash, he only used the power of the great dragon sword soul and the sharpness of the ashen pine sword. He did not use the energy within the ashen pine sword. This was because he knew that the energy within the ashen pine sword could only be used 3 times. He had to use it at the most crucial moment. Now is not the time. Although he could not use the energy within the ashen pine sword, the power of the great dragon sword soul, combined with the sharpness of an earth-class treasure, was beyond imagination. Sword chi spread across the sky, and the terrifying sword light slashed towards the heavenly Netherbird. The heavenly Netherbird roared again and again. A surge of energy surged into the sky, instantly shattering the thousands of sword lights. Then it quickly bombarded Lin Xian. The battle between the two was extremely intense. The entire sky was annihilated by the energy. However, this time, the heavenly Netherbird was prepared. Therefore, Lin Xian found it difficult to succeed. Seeing his opponent's aura grow stronger and stronger, Lin Xian gritted his teeth and decided to use the energy within the ashen pine sword. In the next moment, the ashen pine sword in his hand bloomed with a brilliant light. The sword light was like a green flame that lit up the entire sky. Lin Xian gritted his teeth and quickly waved his sword. A huge beam of sword chi slashed forward, and wherever it passed, the sword chi would be destroyed. Wherever it passed, dozens of palaces were turned into ashes. These palaces were the buildings of the Ashen Pine Palace. They were extremely sturdy and could not be damaged by anyone below the king level. But now, under the aftermath of the sword chi, countless palaces were shattered. This sword was too terrifying. It contained the power of the great dragon sword soul and the ashen pine sword. Everything in its path was turned into nothingness. As if it felt the terror of this energy, the heavenly Netherbird's expression changed. It did not expect its opponent to be able to use this kind of sword chi. Chapter 1229. No, this is definitely not that brat's energy. The heavenly netherbird's expression changed drastically. Although the sword chi from before was spiritual energy, it could feel that it was the power of an honorable. But now the sword chi was so sharp that it made it tremble in fear. Moreover, there was a power that surpassed the honorable realm within it. Damn it, he used the power of the Song Song sword. The heavenly netherbird was extremely shocked. It was too familiar with this power. Back then, Song Song had used this power to seal it. It did not expect to see this power again, after a few thousand years. Sensing the threat, the heavenly netherbird roared. The flames on its body spread out like the flames of hell, burning everything. The entire void quickly collapsed under the flames. So what if it's the power of the Song Song sword? I didn't waste my time underground for thousands of years. Today, I'll let you see the sword technique I created. 9 underworld demonic sword come out. The heavenly netherbird roared. Suddenly, the black feathers on its body burned fiercely. Then it rose into the air and quickly formed a huge black sword in the air. The black sword was extremely huge. It was more than 100 feet long, and was formed by the black feathers on the heavenly netherbird's body. Its surface was covered with black flames that burned fiercely, and emitted a terrifying and violent power. The black flames were like the flames of hell, strange and terrifying. The black sword was like a demonic sword from hell. It carried with it endless killing intent, as if it wanted to destroy everything. The heavenly netherbird stretched out its huge beast claws, and grabbed the 9 underworld demonic sword. Then it swept it out. Monstrous flames surged out and boundless killing intent surged. This sword directly cut the void open. Clang! In the next moment, the Song Song sword and the 9 underworld demonic sword collided, and let out an earth-shattering sound. The entire ground crumbled, and terrifying cracks appeared one after another. Lava spewed out from the cracks, reaching hundreds of feet high. Lin Xian, on the other hand, was also struck by the shockwave and was sent flying. Huge cracks appeared on the red lotus armor on his body. It wasn't that the armor wasn't strong enough, but that the sword chi was too terrifying. Even with Lin Xian's red lotus armor, which was condensed using his spiritual energy, it couldn't withstand it at all. Unless it was the true red lotus armor, it might be able to block the sword chi. Wounds appeared on Lin Xian's body, so deep that his bones could be seen. Other than these sword marks, there were many places on his body that had been burned by the black flames. There was nothing he could do about it. The 9 underworld demonic sword was too terrifying. Moreover, it came from the heavenly netherbird, so its power was unimaginable. Fortunately, Lin Xian had used the power of the ashen pine sword to block most of the sword chi. Otherwise, that sword strike from before would have been enough to take his life. Even so, he was still in a very dangerous situation. This was because he could only use the ashen pine sword's power 2 more times. After that, the ashen pine sword would shatter. On the other hand, the heavenly netherbird was different. It was a peerless vicious beast, and it had a demonic weapon, like the 9 hell demon sword. Its power could be used without limit. This was undoubtedly a huge threat to him. Therefore, Lin Xian would not waste the next 2 waves of energy. Taking a deep breath, Lin Xian used the art of longevity to quickly heal the injuries in his body. Then, he rose into the air, and the ashen pine sword in his hand quickly drew a mysterious trajectory in the air. Gale Lightning Sword 5 Sword Demonic Annihilation. At the crucial moment, Lin Xian used the Gale Lightning Sword, and it was the final 5th sword. Originally, the 5th sword required the power of a king to use, but now that he had the ashen pine sword, he could use it earlier. Even so, Lin Xian's body had reached its limit. It was as if it would collapse at any moment. However, Lin Xian was fearless. He gritted his teeth and waved his arms with all his might, unleashing a terrifying martial path sword chi. 5 giant swords rapidly appeared in the sky, as if they had been unleashed by a god. It was terrifying to the extreme. Not only that, but a desolate aura was emitted from those sword shadows. The 5 sword shadows were like heavenly swords that surrounded Lin Xian, temporarily isolating the aura of the underworld demonic realm. Looking at the 5 sword shadows, the heavenly netherbird narrowed its eyes. To be honest, the human boy in front of it had indeed exceeded its expectations. His opponent was clearly only a 7th heavenly layer venerable, but the battle strength he displayed was not weaker than a king. This shocked the heavenly netherbird, especially his sword chi. Apart from the power of the ashen pine sword, there was also an unusually sharp offensive aura. That aura made the heavenly netherbird feel uneasy in the depths of its heart. It had only felt this uneasiness when it fought Taoist Song Song in the past. Moreover, it had lost that battle, and it had been utterly defeated. Therefore, when it felt this uneasiness again, killing intent surged in the heavenly netherbbird's heart. Therefore it would not let Lin Xian go. Boy, it's useless. Although your strength has exceeded my expectations, it's not your strength. Therefore, you can't defeat me. Moreover, once the underworld demonic sword appears, even if you have the ashen pine sword, you have no chance. However, Lin Xian ignored it. Even now, he had no reason to give up. In the next moment, he took a deep breath and slashed down with the ashen pine sword. Immediately, the 5 sword shadows in the sky slashed down together with his movement. The 5 sword shadows were like the swords of the heavens, containing an invincible aura. It was as if nothing could stop it. Even if it was a god or a demon, it would still be killed. The heavenly netherbird roared as it held the underworld demonic sword. Its body emitted a monstrous demonic aura. As if it was a peerless demon, it slashed out several sword chi. The terrifying underworld demonic sword chi soared into the sky and clashed with the giant sword in the sky. When the two energies collided, an apocalyptic energy erupted. Then the entire space was affected. The Ashen Pine Palace shook incessantly, and countless buildings were turned to ashes by the energy. Lin Xian was also sent flying by the energy. The heavenly netherbird's enormous body was also sent flying. It was like a giant mountain. Every step it took caused the entire world to tremble. Not only that, but there was also blood in the sky. Some of it belonged to Lin Xian, and some of it belonged to the heavenly netherbird. The dark red dragon was like a red lightning bolt. It shuttled through the endless torrent and accurately captured the heavenly netherbird's blood. However, this energy was too violent. He was sent flying dozens of times, but every time, he would fly back again without any regard for his life. In the end, the heavenly netherbird's blood was completely absorbed by it. The violent energy gradually weakened and disappeared. More than half of the buildings in the Ashen Pine Palace were destroyed. The ground was pierced through, and there were countless black cracks in the sky that had yet to heal. Chapter 1230. Brat, how are you? The dark red dragon quickly rushed to Lin Xian's side. Cough cough. Lin Xian kept coughing, and every time he coughed, he spat out a large mouthful of blood. This time his injuries were even worse. All the bones in his body were broken, and his internal organs were severely injured. Fortunately, he had the art of longevity, and his body was very strong, so he did not die immediately. I have dragon blood here, drink it quickly. The dark red dragon stretched out his dragon claw. This was a critical moment, and he had to let Lin Xian recover quickly. Otherwise they would be in danger. No need. Lin Xian shook his head and said with difficulty, I took all the storage rings of the people from the Palace of Gods of War. Duan Tianxing's storage ring had an immortal golden pill. With that pill, no matter how serious your injuries are, you can recover instantly. So don't worry, you won't die. That shocking attack had affected both Lin Xian and the heavenly netherbird. The heavenly netherbird's huge body kept retreating, and it only stopped after retreating a few hundred feet. Deep craters were formed on the ground one after another. Not only that, but the heavenly netherbird was also injured. There was a terrifying sword wound on its body that was dozens of feet long. At this moment, endless blood flowed out of the wound and seeped into the ground. However, the blood was quickly transferred to another place, because the dark red dragon had set up a formation to collect the heavenly netherbird's blood. Brat, you dare to hurt me? The heavenly netherbird's voice was ferocious. It did not expect a human brat to be able to injure it. It was simply beyond its expectations. Of course, it knew that the culprit was the ashen pine sword. I want to see how many times you can use that broken sword. It realized that the ashen pine sword was severely damaged, and it could only use it a few times. Therefore, as long as the ashen pine sword was broken, it had 100 ways to make Lin Xian suffer a fate worse than death. However, in the next moment, its face turned ugly again. This was because he realized that Lin Xian, who was standing opposite him, had been severely injured. However, he had recovered in an instant. Even the spiritual energy that he had consumed had been completely replenished. Damn it, this guy really has a lot of things in his hands. The heavenly serene bird's expression was ferocious. In the next moment, flames surged all over its body and healed its wounds. At his level, as long as it wasn't a fatal injury, he could heal it immediately. Seeing that the heavenly netherbird's wounds had also healed, Lin Xian's expression became extremely serious. But now, the arrow had already been knocked, and he had no choice but to release it. Thus, in the next moment, he once again gripped the azure pine sword, and his entire body became incomparably fierce. The great dragon sword soul in his body quickly revolved, and at the same time, a cyan dragon-shaped sword shadow quickly condensed in front of him. This time, Lin Xian summoned the great dragon sword soul. At that moment, his great dragon sword soul had reached the 8th heavenly layer of the exalted realm. It had become very clear, and he could even see the dragon scales on it. As soon as the great dragon sword soul appeared, countless dragon roars resounded. A terrifying aura spread out in all directions. Even the heavenly netherbird's expression changed at the pressure. Damn it, what is this thing? Why does it make me feel terrified? The sky serene bird's expression changed greatly. He didn't think that there was something else besides the ashen pine sword that he was afraid of. This was beyond his expectations. Who is this kid? Why is he so strange? No, I have to kill him. Otherwise, when he grows up, he will be a great threat to me. The sky serene bird's killing intent surged. The kid in front of him couldn't be left alive. Therefore, he gripped the 9 darkness demonic sword tightly and quickly slashed forward. The black sword chi streaked across the void like a thunderclap, causing the entire void to shake. This was the demonic sword chi, the sky serene bird's most powerful weapon. When he used it now, even ghosts and gods would be shocked. Perhaps even a true king would have to retreat in the face of such power. However, Lin Xian didn't dodge. The red lotus armor on his body condensed again, making him look like a god of war. At that moment, he held the ashen pine sword tightly in his right hand, and the great dragon sword soul in his left. Then, he clasped his hands together, and the ashen pine sword and the great dragon sword soul merged together. The combination of the two exploded with a dazzling light. Countless dragon roars resounded, and a shocking sword chi shot into the sky. At that moment, not only did the ashen pine sword come to life, but it also seemed to have recovered to its peak. An azure-green longsword appeared in the void, emitting a dazzling light. Lin Xian held the longsword in his hand and stood in the void like a peerless king. His entire body emitted a powerful sword aura. In the next moment, he swung his arm and unleashed a shocking sword attack. The sword chi was like a rainbow that streaked across the void, causing the mountains and rivers to lose their color. The green sword shadow transformed into a giant dragon that roared and charged forward. The dazzling light was so bright that no one could look directly at it. The powerful aura caused the entire sky to tremble. What? This power is even stronger than before. Feeling the sword chi in the air, the sky serene bird's face turned ugly. He didn't expect Lin Xian to be able to unleash an even stronger sword chi. The sword chi was a huge threat to him. So he snorted coldly and gripped the nine darkness demonic sword tightly again. He quickly unleashed several sword chi, forming a huge sword net that pressed forward. However, he still underestimated the power of the great dragon sword soul and the ashen pine sword. The combination of the two was still more powerful than a king. Therefore, the black sword net in the sky was instantly shattered, and the terrifying dragon-shaped sword chi quickly enveloped the sky serene bird. Rumble! In front of him, the entire ground caved in. Countless sword chi pierced through the heavens and earth like a sudden clap of thunder, causing the sky to shake. The sky serene bird's body was completely submerged in the sword chi. Blood dyed the ground red and the sky shook. The sky serene bird was even more severely injured, but in the next moment, he let out a mournful roar. Brat, I didn't want to use my true power, but this is what you've got. As the sky serene bird roared, a terrifying power exploded from his body. Not only that, the countless sword chi in front of him retreated, as if they were pushed away by something and flew in all directions. In the next moment, the sky serene bird's terrifying body appeared again. Beside him, there was a flickering black domain that seemed to be an independent space of flames that surrounded him. Brat, you've angered me. You're dead. Even with the ashen pine sword, you won't be able to escape death today. The sky serene bird became extremely ferocious. Originally, he didn't care about dealing with an ant. However, he didn't expect this ant to injure him twice, forcing him to use his true power. Not good, this is the power of a domain. The dark red godly dragon exclaimed as his face turned serious. Damn it, I was too careless. Previously, I thought that he was bound by the star chains and couldn't use much power. I didn't expect him to be able to use a domain. This is really surprising. Chapter 1231. Lin Xian's face was also pale. With his outstanding soul power, he could naturally feel how terrifying that flame domain was. That flame domain made his hair stand on end. A domain is also called a king's domain. It's something that can only be obtained after entering the king realm. Sovereigns cultivate their martial spirits as a source of energy, while kings cultivate domains and use them as a source of energy. A king's domain is an independent domain developed from the martial spirits. Within this domain, the opponent's battle power can be multiplied. The dark red dragon's explanation shocked Lin Xian. He realized that this domain was similar to a small independent space. Of course, it hadn't become a real space, but it was still terrifying. Once he fell into the other party's domain, he was afraid that only death awaited him. Brat, you should be proud that you can die under my 9 underworld devil flame domain. The heavenly netherbird's voice was cold. Around him, countless black flames formed a unique domain that was like hell. It was extremely terrifying. In the next moment, his huge body charged towards Lin Xian with the 9 underworld devil flame domain. The domain's power was too terrifying. Everywhere it passed, the void was shattered. It could be said that the domain contained the essence of a king's energy. It was extremely powerful, and even sovereigns couldn't resist it. Facing the heavenly netherbird's king's domain, Lin Xian's face was extremely solemn. There was only a bit of energy left in the azure pine sword. He had to kill it in one strike. Otherwise, without the azure pine sword, he wouldn't be able to fight against the heavenly netherbird. Looking at the heavenly netherbird getting closer and closer, Lin Xian took a deep breath and slowly raised the azure pine sword. Haha, it's useless. You can't break my king's domain. The heavenly netherbird sneered. I'll let you know what hell is in a moment. Damn it, brat. Why don't we leave? Don't fight with him anymore. He can use the king's domain. His battle power is definitely super strong. The dark red dragon's face was also unsightly. However, Lin Xian decisively shook his head. In this situation, they had to continue fighting. There was still a chance of survival if they fought, but running away meant certain death. Looking at the 9 underworld's devil flame domain that was getting closer and closer, Lin Xian's sword god erupted with a resplendent light. In the next moment, just as he was about to slash out with his sword, an old sigh came from the void. Sigh. This voice was low, but it was incomparably clear. As soon as it appeared, it caused the entire deep pine hall to tremble violently. Even the heavenly nether bird that was flying in front of them suddenly stopped. Its face was filled with fear as if it had seen a ghost. Damn it! Who is it? Get out here! The heavenly nether bird seemed to have been provoked as it roared crazily. Its roar caused the entire void to boil and set off countless shockwaves. Lin Xian's arm also stopped in midair. He could clearly hear that the sigh came from the azure pine sword. Could it be? Lin Xian slowly lowered his arm and looked at the azure pine sword in his hand with a bewildered expression. At that moment the old voice sounded again. Tianyu, I didn't expect that after thousands of years, you would really come out. Hearing this voice, the heavenly nether bird immediately exploded. It screamed in fear. Old man Song Song, how is this possible? Aren't you already dead? Humans and monsters were not the same. Monsters had a long lifespan, so it was not a problem for them to live for thousands of years. Humans, on the other hand, were different. Even the strongest kings could only live for 2,000 to 3,000 years. It was impossible for them to live any longer. Therefore, even though the heavenly nether bird could not defeat Song Song, it was still alive while Song Song was dead. Impossible. Old man Song Song couldn't have lived for so long. Who are you? Stop pretending to be a ghost. Get out here. Back then, it was because you were too cruel. That's why I sealed you. I didn't expect that after thousands of years, not only did it not erase your ruthlessness, it even made you worse. You've really wasted my painstaking efforts. The old voice sounded again. Then, a pale figure leisurely floated out from the azure pine sword. It was an old man with white hair and a white beard. He wore a Taoist robe and had the demeanor of an immortal. Old man Song Song, it's really you. Seeing the illusory figure, the heavenly nether bird could not help but scream. His eyes were filled with fear and dread. Damned old man Song Song, You actually dared to seal me for thousands of years. This time, it'll definitely destroy your nest. With that, the heavenly nether bird coldly snorted, and the 9 underworld demon flame domain burned fiercely. Carrying the king's domain, he charged towards Lin Xian in an even more violent manner. Feeling this energy, Lin Xian's scalp went numb. The pale figure in front of him sighed. Then, with a grab, the azure pine sword in Lin Xian's hand flew into the old man's hand. In the next moment, the azure pine sword exploded with a bright light. It was like a green sun, shining in all directions. A shocking aura exploded from the long sword. This sword chi was too terrifying. Just the aftermath alone caused a 1,000-meter-long crack to appear in the space. Song Song held the azure pine sword in one hand and quickly slashed out a ray of sword chi. The sword chi was thousands of feet long. It was like a green dragon roaring in the sky. This sword slashed directly towards the heavenly nether bird. It fiercely hit the 9 underworld demon flame domain in front of him, causing a shocking explosion. The demon flame domain was mercilessly torn apart, causing a terrifying crack to appear. The heavenly nether bird was even more affected. Its mountain-like body was sent flying backwards. Damn it, this is impossible. You're just a broken soul. How can you have such powerful strength? The heavenly nether bird went crazy in disbelief. That sword chi was too terrifying. It had almost split open its 9 underworld demon flame domain. Although his strength had been greatly reduced in the past few thousand years, and he was no longer as powerful as he was in the past, not just anyone could split open his domain. Moreover, the opponent was just an afterimage of Song Song's soul. It could not use much power. Song Song was also very surprised. He looked at the azure pine sword in his hand. His eyes flashed. What a powerful sword spirit. It's rare. Young man, is this your sword spirit? Song Song looked at Lin Xian. Greetings, senior. That is indeed my sword spirit. Lin Xian answered honestly. Not bad, not bad. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Even I didn't have such a sharp sword soul back then. Young man, your future is limitless, Song Song said. Senior is too kind. Lin Xian and Song Song were talking. On the other side, the heavenly nether bird was going crazy with anger. Ever since he had broken out of the seal, he had not encountered anything that went smoothly. Now, even Song Song's afterimage had appeared. This made him feel very uneasy. Old man, you're just an afterimage. You can't use much power. Once I kill you, it'll destroy your entire Azure Pine Palace. Chapter 1232. Indeed, you're right. I'm only a broken soul. I can't stop you. Hearing this, Lin Xian's expression changed. Senior, please use your full strength to subdue this ancient demonic beast. Otherwise, if he escapes, the entire Tianwu continent will be in chaos. The dark red dragon stomped its feet in anger. Fuck, this old man's strength isn't enough, but he still dares to come out. Song Song wasn't in a hurry. He slowly said, although I can't kill him, I can still teach him a lesson. Then I'll have to ask Senior to do it. Lin Xian said. He didn't want to fight with the terrifying Heaven Netherbird anymore. It was a King Realm expert, and it even had a King Realm domain. It was too terrifying. However, old Taoist Song Song stared at Lin Xian and asked in a low voice, young man, do you want to try beating up Tianyu? What? Both Lin Xian and the Crimson Dragon were stunned when they heard that. Beating up the Heaven Netherbird? How was that possible? Unless Lin Xian was a King Realm expert. The dark red dragon also muttered, it's over, it's over. This old man has gone crazy. In the distance, the Heaven Netherbird laughed crazily. Old man Song Song, I think you've really gone crazy. A broken soul imprint wants to beat me? What a joke. The Heaven Netherbird's expression was one of disdain. If Song Song was at his peak, he might be afraid. But now, his opponent was just a broken soul imprint. He didn't need to worry. Lin Xian also had a strange expression on his face. Senior, you're not joking, right? Beating up the Heaven Netherbird was indeed exciting, but Lin Xian knew that it was impossible. After all, the Heaven Netherbird was an existence that even kings feared. How could he beat it? However, Song Song smiled. Don't worry. Since I said so, I naturally have a way. Although I can't raise your cultivation to the King Realm, I can suppress the Heaven Netherbird's cultivation to the Sovereign Realm. You're talking about the astral chains. Lin Xian's pupil shrank as he thought of a possibility. That's right, it's indeed the astral chains. Back then I used the astral chains to trap him, just in case. I didn't expect that I would finally have to use it now. Song Song said slowly. In the distance, the Heavenly Netherbird's expression changed when it heard this. He realized that the old Taoist Song Song's words were very likely to come true, because the 4 astral chains on his body were too miraculous. They had been suppressing him all these years, and not only had his cultivation not improved, it had actually weakened. Now that old Taoist Song Song's broken soul had recovered, and with the help of the stellar key, his cultivation might really be suppressed. At that time, he would probably be in trouble. Damned old ghost, go to hell. The Heavenly Netherbird went crazy. It held the Netherworld Demon Sword, and used its king's domain to quickly charge forward. This time, he was truly determined to kill. He was determined to kill all of them. However, old Taoist Song Song took the stellar key from Lin Xian, and quickly formed a seal. Suddenly, the stellar key released a dazzling light, and formed a starry sky map in the air. Stars were floating and spinning in the void, flickering in and out of existence. When the starry sky map appeared, the Heavenly Netherbird screamed in pain. The astral chains on his body seemed to have come alive, and were making clanking sounds. The originally pitch-black chain had shed its black outer layer, and was now emitting an azure light. Every ray of light formed a star. In the end, the 4 astral chains carried a sky full of stars, and completely surrounded the Heavenly Netherbird. No! The Heavenly Netherbird roared crazily, and used its king's domain to resist. However, it had been suppressed for thousands of years, and its strength was not as strong as before. Moreover, the astral chains were specifically used to suppress it. Therefore, it did not struggle for long before it was surrounded by the stars. The direct result was that the king's domain around the Heavenly Netherbird quickly disappeared. Not only that, its aura plummeted, and it quickly fell to the honorable realm. In the end, the Heavenly Netherbird's cultivation stopped at the 8th heaven of the honorable realm. Soon, the stars in the sky disappeared, and the Heavenly Netherbird's huge figure appeared. However, at this moment, its aura was no longer as strong as before. Not only that, but its eyes were filled with fear, because it was no longer invincible. It was only at the 8th heaven of the honorable realm. It will not be able to maintain this state for long, so you should end this quickly. After using the secret technique, old Taoist Song Song's figure became abnormally blurry, as if it would disappear at any time. "Thank you, Senior," Lin Xian said respectfully. Then he turned to look at the heavenly netherbird, his eyes shining. If the heavenly netherbird was not a match for him before, it was different now. The heavenly netherbird was suppressed to the 8th heaven of the honorable realm, which was the same strength as him. Therefore he was not afraid of it at all. With a clang, Lin Xian pulled out the Lone Star sword from his back and quickly attacked. Astral sword technique. As he waved his long sword, countless sword rays shot into the sky, turning into meteors one after another, and bombarding the heavenly netherbird. This sword technique was comprehended by Lin Xian in the astral pavilion. When he used it now, it could be said to be extremely powerful. "Ah, reptile, go to hell!" The heavenly netherbird fought with all its might. Although the king's domain was gone, its 9 underworld demon sword was still there. Therefore it held the huge black demon sword and quickly met the attack. Bang 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 bang. The two exchanged dozens of blows, and the heavenly netherbird was defeated. Ah, this is so infuriating. The heavenly netherbird was so angry that its lungs were about to explode. It was an ancient beast, and a peerless beast on the heaven ranking. Now that it was defeated by a young human, it could not accept it. However, its cultivation was completely suppressed, and it could not use it at all. Therefore, even if it was angry, there was nothing it could do. Moreover, the human youth in front of it had truly shocked it. Previously, it thought that the other party could only fight it with the power of the Song Song sword. But now, its cultivation was suppressed to the 8th heaven of the honorable realm, which was one level higher than the other party. But it still could not defeat the other party. Moreover, the other party was not using the Song Song sword. This made it understand that the young man in front of it was definitely not an ordinary martial artist. He should be a genius among the human martial artists, someone who could fight above his level. After being sent flying again, the heavenly netherbird was in an extremely sorry state. It gritted its teeth and roared, "Brat, I'll spare your life today. Once I recover my strength, I'll tear you to pieces." With that, it turned around and flew into the sky. It spread its huge wings, and was about to fly into the sky. It had been too frustrating today, and its cultivation had been suppressed. It did not want to fight anymore. It wanted to find a place to break the suppression of the astral chains, and then come back to kill these people. At that time, no one would be able to stop it. Chapter 1233. Therefore Lin Xian used the dragon-catching hand the moment the sky serene bird flew into the sky. Two huge dragons coiled around each other, forming a giant hand that grabbed towards the sky. In the next moment, the sky serene bird was caught by the dragon-catching hand. Get lost! The sky serene bird struggled as black flames burned all over its body. It wanted to retract the giant hand. However, the dragon-catching hand was extremely mysterious. Legend had it that it could even capture a giant dragon, let alone a sky serene bird. Furthermore, the dragon-catching hand was infused with the power of the great dragon sword spirit by Lin Xian. It was extremely powerful. The two real dragons roared. They were so lifelike that they looked as if they were real. They quickly coiled around the heavenly netherbird and pulled it downwards. Boom! The sky serene bird crashed into the ground, creating a huge crater. Lin Xian waved his hand and four huge light swords of wind, thunder, water and fire appeared, surrounding the sky serene bird and trapping it. Lin Xian held the killing sword in his hand and walked forward step by step. I'll give you a chance. Hand over a little bit of essence blood and a trace of flame origin, and I'll let you go. Otherwise, don't blame me for beating you up. Lin Xian was very excited. He never thought that he would be able to beat the sky serene bird up one day. This feeling was too good. Brat, you're courting death. The sky serene bird roared in anger. However, what awaited it was a sharp sword. The sword landed on the sky serene bird's body and made a huge sound. However, what was shocking was that such a sharp sword did not leave a single mark on the sky serene bird's body. This made Lin Xian extremely surprised. However, he quickly understood. This was because the sky serene bird was very similar to the dark red divine dragon. They both had strong physiques, but their cultivations were suppressed. The sky serene bird screamed and roared. He knew that his opponent could only hurt him because of the ashen pine sword. Without the ashen pine sword, his opponent could not break through his defense. Knowing this, he completely relaxed. Ha 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 ha, lowly worm. So what if you've trapped me? With your strength, you can't break through my defense. The sky serene bird sneered. Humph. I really don't know what you have to be so proud of. Lin Xian coldly snorted and quickly waved his sword. Sword chi shot out like rainbows and ruthlessly slashed the heavenly netherbird's body. The sky serene bird forgot one thing. Although Lin Xian's longsword couldn't break through its defense, it didn't mean that the sword chi wouldn't hurt. Therefore, it didn't take long for the heavenly netherbird to start screaming. Damned brat, I'll definitely tear you to shreds later. The heavenly netherbird gritted its teeth and stared fiercely at Lin Xian. You dare to threaten me? With another slash, the heavenly serene bird wailed again. However, what shocked Lin Xian the most was that the heavenly netherbird's physique was too strong. Even after slashing so many times, he still couldn't hurt it. This was simply inconceivable. Brat, stop. Don't waste your energy. You won't be able to break through his defense if you continue like this. The dark red dragon shook its head. As an ancient divine beast, it naturally knew how strong the heavenly netherbird's physique was. In order to break through the heavenly netherbird's defense, one would need to be at least at the king level, or Lin Xian could use the Tsong Song sword. However, Lin Xian didn't dare to use the Tsong Song sword because there was no more energy inside. If he used it, the Tsong Song sword would shatter. At that time, the old Taoist Tsong Song's figure might also disappear. At that time, who knows if the starry chains would still be effective? How about I set up a killing formation? I don't believe that I can't break through this guy's defense. The dark red dragon was also thinking, should I set up the immortal slaying formation or the demon slaying formation? The names of these formations caused the heavenly netherbird to tremble. These were all famous formations from the ancient times. Although it didn't believe that Lin Xian could set them up, it was still very surprised. This was because it realized that the dark red dragon was just like him. It was also an ancient divine beast, but it had lost its cultivation. However, Lin Xian shook his head. There's no need to go through so much trouble. I'll try using the 10,000 beast cauldron. With that, Lin Xian took out the 10,000 beast cauldron. When the black cauldron appeared, the heavenly netherbird's pupils shrank and it shrieked. An earth rank artifact. It didn't notice it during the battle, but now that it was so close, It immediately felt that the 10,000 Beast Cauldron was extraordinary. With its knowledge, it naturally recognized that the Black Cauldron was an Earth rank artifact. Moreover, it was a complete Earth rank artifact. Immediately, the heavenly Netherbird broke out in cold sweat. It didn't think that a few humans would have a complete Earth rank artifact. Moreover, Lin Xian was only an honored realm expert. Even the old Taoist Song Song's figure was shocked. An Earth rank artifact requires a lot of power. It's impossible to use it without reaching the King realm. The heavenly Netherbird held on to its last glimmer of hope. However, it soon despaired because Lin Xian didn't use it at all. Instead, Lin Xian swung the 10,000 Beast Cauldron towards it. Clang! Lin Xian used the black 10,000 Beast Cauldron as a brick and smashed it onto the heavenly Netherbird's body, causing a deafening sound to resound. The heavenly Netherbird was in so much pain that it started to cry. Lin Xian's arm was numb as well. Damn it, its defense is so strong. I don't believe that an Earth rank artifact can't break through it. Lin Xian gritted his teeth and used all the strength in his body to grab the 10,000 Beast Cauldron and smashed it again. This time, the heavenly Netherbird was in so much pain that it wanted to die. On the other hand, Lin Xian's face was gloomy because he still hadn't broken through it. Brat, you're hitting the wrong place. Hit its head. The dark red dragon decisively grabbed the 10,000 Beast Cauldron and swung its claw at the heavenly Netherbird's head. The heavenly Netherbird saw stars and almost fainted. After this attack, the heavenly Netherbird was completely convinced. It was too painful. Unlike the Lone Star Sword, the 10,000 Beast Cauldron was a true Earth rank artifact. Its power was no joke. Although it didn't have any external injuries, it had suffered internal injuries. Many of its bones had been broken. Stop. I'll promise you, okay? The heavenly Netherbird roared. Isn't it just a drop of essence blood and a trace of flame source? I'll give it to you. It was completely terrified. You should have done this earlier. Lin Xian let out a sigh of relief. You didn't have to force me to use my last resort. The dark red dragon's eyes also widened. It had finally obtained the heavenly Netherbird's essence blood. In the next moment, the heavenly Netherbird reluctantly handed over a drop of essence blood. A drop of essence blood was only the size of a fist. Although it looked small, the energy it contained was incomparably pure. The dark red dragon's face was filled with ecstasy. It hugged the essence blood and quickly dived into the beast bag. Brat, I'll go into seclusion for a few days. The dark red dragon roared excitedly. His roar woke up the little white monkey. The latter rubbed its eyes in dissatisfaction and jumped onto Lin Xian's shoulder. Chapter 1234. The heavenly serene bird gritted its teeth and unwillingly pulled out a black feather from its tail. It contained a trace of the origin flame. The heavenly serene bird threw it to Lin Xian. However, it was snatched away by the little white monkey. Little White looked at the feather and shook its head. Lin Xian's heart skipped a beat. He didn't care because he felt that Little White must have its reasons for doing so. As expected, the little white monkey threw the feather to the ground and quickly scanned the heavenly serene bird's body with its black gemstone eyes. Damn monkey, what are you doing? For some reason, the heavenly serene bird was scared by the little white monkey. However, the little white monkey didn't care at all. It stared at a black feather on the heavenly serene bird's tail and quickly flew over. Damn monkey, you're looking for death. Get out of my way. Seeing the little white monkey's actions, the heavenly serene bird almost went berserk. Although the feather that it gave Lin Xian contained the origin flame, it was very rare. It didn't give anything good. However, it didn't expect the little white monkey to find it and target the feather on its body. How could it tolerate this? Therefore, it tried its best to dodge. However, in the next moment, a furry paw gently patted its head. Then it saw stars. The world was spinning. It was a terrible feeling. It didn't faint. However, it couldn't move at all. The dizziness lasted for a short time. However, it was enough for the little white monkey to pull out the black feather. Therefore, when the heavenly serene bird woke up again, Lin Xian still had the origin feather. The heavenly serene bird stared at the little white monkey and Lin Xian with murderous intent in its eyes. That was the origin feather. It contained a large amount of origin flame. Now that it was taken away, its strength was definitely affected. However, Lin Xian was very satisfied. He could naturally sense that the black flame aura contained within the feather before him was much denser. The origin flame contained in this black feather was clearly much stronger than the previous one. It seemed that the heavenly netherbird was only trying to deal with him and didn't plan on giving him a good origin flame. He didn't expect the little white monkey to discover it. Furthermore, from the looks of it, this feather must be extremely important to the heavenly netherbird. Since that was the case, Lin Xian happily accepted it. After obtaining the primordial feather, Lin Xian should be able to condense a flame martial soul in no time. At that time, he would have 4 martial souls. His combat strength would definitely reach a terrifying level. However, he didn't leave immediately because Lin Xian knew that once the heavenly netherbird regained its strength, it would chase him all over the world. Therefore, he had to come up with some life-saving methods. In the next moment, Lin Xian controlled the 10,000 beast cauldron and planted a beast slave seal in the heaven netherbird's body. Although he knew that the beast slave seal couldn't completely control the heavenly serene bird, it could still restrict it. Moreover, if he was really anxious, he could use the 10,000 beast cauldron and the beast slave seal. After doing all this, Lin Xian no longer cared about the heavenly netherbird. Instead, he turned to old Taoist Song Song and bowed seriously. Then, he turned into a sword radiance and left the place. Damn brat! You dare to steal my primordial feather and plant a beast slave seal in me? No matter where you run to, I'll kill you. The heavenly netherbird roared at the sky. It had never suffered such a huge loss before. On the side, old Taoist Song Song looked at this scene and shook his head slightly. In the next moment, the illusory figure disappeared into the stellar key. Then the stellar key exploded with a dazzling light. Old Taoist Song Song used the last of his energy to cast a spell to suppress the heavenly netherbird's cultivation. When all this was done, old Taoist Song Song's figure was no longer there. The Song Song sword had also turned into countless fragments and disappeared into the sky. Damn you, old Taoist Song Song, damn you! The heavenly netherbird was extremely furious. It naturally knew that it wouldn't be able to recover its strength in a short period of time. It didn't expect old Taoist Song Song to be able to suppress it even after his death. However, even though it was roaring, there was nothing it could do. In the distance, ever since Morong Qingqing and the others left, they heard a series of roars coming from the Song Song palace behind them. The sound was extremely terrifying. Even though they were so far away, they could still feel the soul-stirring sound. Naturally, They knew that it was the heavenly netherbird's roar. Therefore, Morong Qingcheng, Zhao Shui, and the others were all worried. This was because Lin Xian was still inside. On the other side, the people from the Palace of Gods of War sneered. Who does that brat think he is? How dare he negotiate with the heavenly netherbird? He's courting death. Don't worry, he's dead for sure. This time, he won't be able to come out. It's just a pity about those treasures. Thinking about the stolen storage rings, the martial artists from the Palace of Gods of War gritted their teeth. However, they didn't dare to act rashly, because the heavenly netherbird's terrifying aura was still present. Moreover, they soon felt an intense energy fluctuation coming from behind them. It seemed that there was a battle going on. The battle was extremely intense. It was even more intense than the honorable realm. This power, how is it possible? Could there be kings fighting? One of the powers belonged to the heavenly netherbird, but who was the other one? Could it be Lin Xian? Impossible. That brat is only a 7th level honorable realm. No matter how strong he is, he can't display the battle strength of a king. Could there be other experts inside? Thinking of this, everyone felt a wave of fear. Fortunately, they had left quickly. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to escape if they had encountered such a terrifying expert. Everyone was paying close attention to the battle at the Pine Palace, because it would determine whether they would be safe for the next few days. However, they soon realized that the terrifying energy and aura had disappeared. The battle is over? Everyone was shocked. Because they were very far away, they didn't know what had happened at the Pine Palace. Both powers had disappeared. Could it be that they had perished together? If that was the case, that would be great. The people from the Palace of Gods of War were excited. Without the threat of the heavenly netherbird, they didn't fear anyone. However, Morong Qingcheng was very worried, because they didn't know how Lin Xian was doing. Oh, go take a look. Sensing the changes ahead, Zhao Shui prepared to go take a look. Oh, go with you. Morong Qingcheng was also worried. However, the elders from the Morong clan all stopped her. Young miss, we don't know the situation ahead. Why don't we wait patiently? Morong Qingcheng was their clan's hope, so they didn't want her to take the risk. Just as the two sides were arguing, a sword light suddenly streaked across the sky. Someone came out of the Pine Palace. Someone shouted. Immediately, everyone looked forward with bewildered expressions. After such an intense battle, could someone still be alive? Chapter 1235. They were certain that it wasn't the heavenly nether bird. If the heavenly nether bird was here, it would definitely be a scene of destruction. However, such a scene didn't appear, so it couldn't be the heavenly nether bird. Why does that figure look so familiar? Fuck, isn't that Lin Xian? Everyone exclaimed. Lin Xian? How could it be Lin Xian? How could he survive such an intense battle? The people from the Palace of Gods of War didn't believe it. They didn't believe that an honorable realm martial artist could survive a battle between kings. It was simply impossible. But in next to no time, their expressions became extremely unsightly, because they'd already seen the figure clearly. It was Lin Xian. Damn it, he's still alive. How is this possible? What kind of luck does this guy have to be able to survive? The people from the Palace of Gods of War looked as if they had seen a ghost. Morong Qingqing cheered. Zhao Shui also let out a sigh of relief. A smile appeared on her cold face. She was relieved that Lin Xian was fine. Morong Qingqing also mumbled in a low voice. I knew it. This guy would be fine for sure. Lin Xian naturally saw Morong Qingqing and Zhao Shui. His figure flashed and landed in front of them. Lin Xian, it's really you. It's great that you're fine. What could happen to me? Lin Xian shrugged. How did you get out? What's the situation in front? Is the heavenly nether bird still alive? A group of martial artists surrounded him and kept asking questions. There's a remnant soul left behind by a peerless martial artist in the Pine Palace. He fought with the heavenly nether bird. The heavenly nether bird is still alive, but he's injured. I'm afraid he won't be able to recover in a short period of time. Lin Xian said. Of course, what he said wasn't the entire truth. At least, he didn't tell everyone about his battle with the heavenly nether bird. Knowing that the heavenly nether bird was heavily injured and would not be able to fight for a while, everyone let out a sigh of relief. As for the Palace of Gods of War's side, their expressions were unfriendly as they all surrounded him. When Lin Xian took their storage rings, they didn't dare to do anything because of the pressure from the heavenly nether bird. But now that the heavenly nether bird was gone, they had nothing to worry about. Even though Lin Xian was strong, they had 2 8th level venerables on their side. Moreover, they had many other experts as well. Thus, they weren't afraid of Lin Xian if they really fought. Brat, I didn't expect you to be so lucky to be able to come back alive. However, don't think that you'll be fine just like that. How dare you steal our storage rings? Spit them out right now. Not only that, you'll have to hand over all your treasures to make up for your crimes. Duan Tianxing had no intention of letting Lin Xian go. Looking at the group of people from the Palace of Gods of War, the Morong clan was also very cautious. After all, the other party was a powerful force. If they really fought, both sides would suffer. On the other hand, Lin Xian's expression was indifferent. He wasn't even afraid of the heavenly nether bird, let alone these people from the Palace of Gods of War. Moreover, the battle with the heavenly nether bird had benefited him a lot. It could be said that his battle experience had greatly increased. The people in front of him were no match for him at all. Last time, I was in a good mood and allowed you to use your storage rings to buy your lives. I didn't expect you to not learn your lesson and still dare to provoke me. But this time, I'm very curious. What do you want to use to buy your lives? You're courting death. Attack. Duan Tianxing roared. Then, the martial artists from the Palace of Gods of War and the Palace of Divine Birds surrounded Lin Xian and the others. Duan Tianxing and Yan Feng faced off against Lin Xian, while the others stared at the people from the Morong clan and Merry Woods. Brat, you're dead this time. I'll kill you with my own hands. Yan Feng stared at Lin Xian, his voice ferocious. However, before he could finish his sentence, he saw a human-shaped lightning bolt charging towards him. Boom! Yan Feng was caught off guard. He didn't expect Lin Xian to attack him so quickly. There was no warning at all. Therefore, he could only passively defend. In the next moment, the boundless power of thunder and lightning quickly surrounded him. The powerful force numbed his entire body. You're courting death. Seeing Lin Xian defeat Yan Feng with one move, Duan Tianxing roared. He quickly unleashed his martial soul and pounced on Lin Xian. Lin Xian snorted coldly. Without saying a word, he summoned the Thousand Beast Cauldron. Then, He held it in his hand and quickly slammed it forward. Clang! The sound of metal vibrating rang out. Suddenly, everyone's scalp went numb, and their faces turned pale. Duan Tianqing bore the brunt of the impact and was directly sent flying. Damn it, this is impossible. What exactly is that thing? How can it be so powerful? Everyone was stunned. Duan Tianqing was an eighth heaven honorable. How could he be sent flying with one move? This was unbelievable. The people from the Palace of Gods of War looked at Lin Xian with cold sweat on their faces. They regretted provoking him again. In an instant, those martial artists were all stunned. They didn't dare to move at all. Tell me, how do you want to buy your life this time? Lin Xian stepped on Duan Tianxing's body and said coldly. Duan Tianqing was trembling with anger. He spat out a mouthful of blood. He had never been humiliated like this before. However, Lin Xian was too strange. Especially the small black cauldron in his hand. It almost shattered his martial soul with one move. This made him extremely terrified. However, he had already lost his storage ring. At this moment, he didn't have anything left to lose. Therefore, he could only grit his teeth and lie on the ground, pretending to be dead. Lin Xian naturally understood that the other party had nothing left. However, he wouldn't let them off so easily. Moreover, he thought of something. He had to clarify this matter. Otherwise, there would be a lot of trouble in the future. There's something I need you to tell me. If I'm satisfied with your answer, I can let you go. Otherwise, you can stay here forever to accompany the heavenly Netherbird. Hearing Lin Xian's words, the surrounding people trembled. Their eyes were filled with fear. Duan Tianqing also gritted his teeth and said, Tell me, what's the problem? Why do you want to kill me? Logically speaking, even if I offended young Master Ling Feng, the Palace of Gods of War shouldn't have sent experts like you, right? Yes, this was the question that Lin Xian had been wondering. He realized that Duan Tianqing and the others weren't on the same side as young Master Ling Feng. Although both sides wanted to kill him, they weren't on the same level. Therefore, he thought that there must be some reason that he didn't know. You don't know. Duan Tianqing was also stunned. In his opinion, Lin Xian should know about this matter. It seems like those people didn't tell you. Who? Speak clearly. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Lin Xian said coldly. You should know that the palace master of the Palace of Gods of War is in seclusion. The vice palace master is preparing to seize power. Therefore, the Palace of Gods of War is divided into two factions. Chapter 1236. Duan Tianxing took a deep breath and continued. When the palace master was in seclusion, he drew a painting and asked all the martial artists in the Palace of Gods of War to welcome and assist him. The person in the painting is you. What? Hearing this, everyone was stunned. The ordinary martial artists in the Palace of Gods of War were also stunned, because this painting was only seen by the higher-ups of the Palace of Gods of War. And those higher-ups didn't spread the news, so ordinary martial artists didn't know at all. This Lin Xian actually had such a close relationship with the Palace of Gods of War. The martial artists from the other factions were even more shocked. Lin Xian frowned. Then he seemed to have thought of something and quickly asked, "What's the name of your palace master? What does he look like? Hurry up and tell me." He thought of a possibility. Although it was unbelievable, he had to ask clearly. Lin Xian was very excited, because he thought of a possibility, so he had to confirm it. Duan Tianxing didn't plan to hide it, because this matter couldn't be hidden at all. After Lin Xian went out, the other people in the Palace of Gods of War would definitely come looking for him. The palace master of the Palace of Gods of War is called Lin Zhan. As for what he looks like, I think you should know. Lin Zhan. Hearing this name, Lin Xian's body trembled. It was just as he thought. Although he was very shocked and didn't dare to believe it, it was probably the truth. Lin Zhan was his father's name. Lin Xian didn't expect his father to be the palace master of the Palace of Gods of War. But how was this possible? One had to know that his father had only left him for about 3 years. Before that, his father had always been in the Xia country of the Tiannan region. How could he suddenly become the palace master of the Palace of Gods of War? The palace master of the Palace of Gods of War was at least a king. What kind of opportunity could allow a spirit transformation realm martial artist to become a king in such a short period of time? Lin Xian didn't dare to imagine at all. However, the facts before his eyes showed that the palace master of the Palace of Gods of War was really his father. Thinking about the sword heart pendant his father gave him, and the words left in the ancestral land, Lin Xian felt that his father might not be as simple as he looked. There should be some shocking secret on him. As for what this secret was, he would probably only know when he met his father. With news of his father, all his problems were solved. Lin Xian finally understood why Duan Tianxing and the others wanted to kill him. Because Lin Xian's real identity was the young master of the Palace of Ares. In the future, if there were no accidents, he would be the one to inherit the Palace of Gods of War. How could the vice palace master allow such a threat to exist? That was why there was a series of pursuits. Lin Xian did not expect that he would be involved in this kind of power struggle for no reason at all. He was afraid that there would be many fierce battles in the future. Duan Tianxing gritted his teeth and said, "I'm done. Can you let us go now?" Scram! Lin Xian kicked him away. "Tell your vice palace master to not have any ideas about the Palace of Ares. Also, it won't be long before I personally make a trip to the Palace of Ares." Everyone gasped. Judging from Lin Xian's tone, it seemed like he wanted to start a war with the Palace of Ares. Now, many people had already guessed some terrifying news, and their eyelids twitched. They did not expect Lin Xian to have such a shocking origin. Duan Tianxing crawled up from the ground and led the Palace of Gods of War away. This time, he would definitely not dare to provoke Lin Xian again. Lin Xian also sat to the side to rest, but he was constantly thinking. He had already found his father's whereabouts. All he needed to do was meet up with them at the Palace of Gods of War. Furthermore, after doing this, he still needed to return to the Tiannan region and rescue the entire Lin family from his ice seal. After dealing with the matters of the Tianwu continent, Lin Xian would fulfill his promise to Zero and leave the Tianwu continent. He would go to a wider world and fulfill his promise. This promise was naturally related to King Dan Yu and the legendary Pill sect. Lin Xian would not forget this. In the next few days, no one ran around. Instead, they waited quietly because the day of departure was approaching. However, on the day before they left, there was another change. That was because in the distant Deep Pine Hall, an extremely berserk demonic aura surged out. It swept through the 9 heavens as if a peerless beast had awakened. Following that, A roar like thunder rang out. "Damned brat, where are you? Come out, I'll definitely kill you." This voice was filled with boundless killing intent. When the cultivators in the distance heard this, their expressions changed, and they even began to tremble. The Heaven Nether Bird. That's the Heaven Nether Bird's voice. Damn it, it's revived again. Not good, the Heaven Nether Bird is coming. Everyone run. Everyone panicked and began to flee. There was no way around it. The Heaven Nether Bird was too powerful. Even kings were not its match, let alone them. Thus they chose to hide. As long as they could hide for another day, they would be able to leave safely. Lin Xian also frowned. He did not expect the Heaven Nether Bird to recover its strength so quickly. This was not good news for him. Furthermore, if the Heaven Nether Bird also left this place and arrived at the Tianmu continent, there would be a storm of blood. Furthermore, his current strength was not enough to contend against the Heaven Nether Bird. If they met again, it would be very troublesome. On the side, Zhao Shui and Morong Qingqing looked at Lin Xian with suspicion. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Lin Xian felt his hair stand on end. The brat that the Heaven Nether Bird was talking about, could it be you? What did you do to make it so angry? Morong Qingqing was puzzled. Zhao Shui was also very curious. Lin Xian said indifferently, "It's nothing. I only plucked a feather and let it bleed a little." "What, you injured the Heaven Nether Bird?" The two were shocked. This was shocking news. What kind of existence was the Heaven Nether Bird? It was a peerless demonic beast. It was at least a king realm beast. However, such a terrifying existence was actually injured by Lin Xian. This was too inconceivable. "It's not that exaggerated. I wasn't the one fighting. I only took advantage of the situation." Seeing that Lin Xian did not want to say more, the two did not continue to ask. However, they did not stay here and quickly escaped. Right now, the only thing they could do was to leave safely and not let the Heaven Nether Bird find trouble. The Heaven Nether Bird searched around and did not find Lin Xian. It was extremely angry and began to bombard everything around it. Immediately, the mountains and forests were all flattened. However, this situation only lasted for half a day before the Heaven Nether Bird disappeared. Not only that, the terrifying pressure also disappeared. This allowed everyone to breathe a sigh of relief. However, that night the terrifying aura surged out again. Chapter 1237. According to his guess, the heavenly nether bird had not completely removed the suppression of the astral chains. Furthermore, the suppression had become extremely unstable, causing its strength to fluctuate. This allowed Lin Xian to heave a sigh of relief. At least the heavenly nether bird was not an invincible existence. It still had its weaknesses. This way, even if it went out, it would not dare to be too flamboyant. Otherwise, it would be surrounded by the kings of the Tianwu continent. A night of danger passed. The next day, just as the sun rose, the entire remote sky secret realm became different. Everyone felt a mysterious force repelling them. They knew that the remote sky secret realm was about to close, and they were going to be teleported out. The force grew stronger and stronger, and finally, someone disappeared. Seeing this scene, everyone was ecstatic. The last 2 days were like a nightmare. They had spent it carefully, afraid that the heavenly nether bird would discover them. Now that they could leave this place and escape this danger, they were naturally happy. Lin Xian, I'll leave first. When I return to the Tianwu continent, I'll look for you. Morong Qingqing waved her hand and left with her clansmen. On the other side, the people from the Palace of Gods of War also looked at Lin Xian with complicated expressions before they were teleported out. Zhao Shui, how did you get in? Lin Xian was very curious. Zhao Shui looked at Lin Xian and smiled. Lin Xian was very familiar with that smile. This was clearly the Zhao Shui that he knew. But in the next moment, that smile disappeared and was replaced with a cold expression. The Zhao Shui in front of him did not notice the change in his expression. Instead, he said in a deep voice, I sneaked in from a rank 6 sect. I should be teleported back to where I came from. But don't worry, I shouldn't be in any danger. Lin Xian was not worried about this. After all, Zhao Shui was not weaker than him. Even an 8th level venerable might not be able to do anything to him. However, what really worried Lin Xian was Zhao Shui's situation and that strange smile. At that moment, Lin Xian clearly felt that the Zhao Shui he was familiar with had returned. But in the next moment, that feeling disappeared. This made him extremely puzzled. However, he couldn't explain it now. He could only wait and see. There's something wrong with your friend. After Zhao Shui left, Zero's voice sounded. What? What is it? Lin Xian asked. The cultivation technique she practices is very strange. It seems to be able to produce a second soul. What? You're saying that there are 2 souls in Zhao Shui's body? Lin Xian was shocked. You could say that. Hearing this, Lin Xian was completely dumbfounded. He knew that there was something wrong with Zhao Shui's body, but he had never thought that there would be 2 souls in her body. This was too inconceivable to him. No wonder Zhao Shui's temperament had changed so much that she didn't even recognize him. It seemed that her original soul had been suppressed. Then is she in danger? Lin Xian asked. She's fine now. Her original soul should be asleep. However, she'll definitely be in danger in the future. Maybe the soul produced by the cultivation technique will replace her original soul. After all, the Void Sky Eye was a very strange cultivation technique in ancient times. There were many amazing geniuses who practiced it, but they all died in the end. There's actually such a thing. Lin Xian frowned. He realized that Zhao Shui's situation was very bad. What can I do to save her? The 2 of them could be said to have gone through thick and thin together. So Lin Xian couldn't sit idly by. Don't worry. With your current strength, you won't be able to save her. Moreover, I suspect that this cultivation technique itself is a conspiracy. This matter can't be explained in a short period of time. Leave here first. I'll explain it to you later. Zero's voice disappeared as a surge of energy enveloped Lin Xian's body. In the next moment, Lin Xian disappeared from where he was. A mysterious spatial force brought Lin Xian out of the hidden sky secret realm. When he opened his eyes again, the scenery around him had changed greatly. It was no longer the primitive forest of the hidden sky secret realm, but the scenery of the immortal martial academy. I'm back. Lin Xian heaved a sigh of relief. After more than 3 months, he was finally back. Lin Xian, it's Lin Xian. He's out. Below, the crowd was excited. Endless shouts could be heard. Brother Xian. A group of Dragon Sword Pavilion disciples waved and shouted. The surrounding people's gazes also fell on Lin Xian. However, in the next moment, everyone was stunned. This aura, seventh heaven venerable! Everyone exclaimed because they felt a terrifying aura from Lin Xian's body. Although he didn't deliberately release it, the pressure still made their hearts jump. The surrounding elders were also shocked. If they remembered correctly, Lin Xian's cultivation should only be at the fourth heaven venerable when he first entered. However, they didn't expect him to break through to the seventh heaven venerable in just a few months. This kind of breakthrough speed was truly shocking. Of course, they still didn't know that Lin Xian could beat up an eighth heaven venerable. If they knew, their jaws would probably drop. Headmaster Xian was astonished as well. But soon after, he revealed a smile. As expected of the legendary person, this kid's strength and talent are truly heaven-defying. Seventh heaven venerable Brother Xian, you're too strong. Wang Li and the other Dragon Sword Pavilion disciples rushed up and surrounded Lin Xian with exclamations. Don't worry, I brought back a lot of treasures this time. When the time comes, I'll definitely let you guys improve. Lin Xian smiled. He wouldn't be stingy to the people around him. Really? That's great. Thank you, Brother Xian. Brother Xian is domineering and mighty. A group of people cheered. At this moment, the void above fluctuated again. One figure after another appeared. Dugu Outyin Li Yunfei, and the others were among them. Everyone exclaimed again because they realized that Dugu Aoshan's aura had also reached the seventh heaven venerable. Although Li Yunfei's aura hadn't reached the seventh heaven venerable, it had reached the peak of the sixth heaven venerable. It seemed that it wouldn't take long for him to enter the seventh heaven venerable. This made everyone exclaim. The three strongest disciples of the Immortal Martial Academy had greatly improved their strength at this moment. Those elders were also beaming with joy because the harvest this time was indeed not small. However, in the center of these people, there was an exceptionally shocking figure. It was a young man who was only a few years older than Dugu Outyin. He had a tall figure like a fiend god. At this moment, his body was emitting a monstrous aura. Even those elders were extremely shocked. Eighth heaven venerable! Everyone exclaimed and looked at the figure with deep shock. Is he also a disciple of our academy? Why don't I recognize him? Oh my god, eighth heaven venerable! Such a young eighth heaven venerable! He's going to defy the heavens! The group of people was shocked and puzzled at the same time. Chapter 1238. I know. He's a disciple from the previous batch. He's only a few years older than us. He stayed in the punishment hall after graduation. I didn't expect him to enter the remote sky secret realm this time. And his cultivation has risen to the 8th heaven of the honorable realm. Soon Meng Tian's news spread among the crowd. He was ranked 3rd on the previous Mystic Sovereign leaderboard, a member of the punishment hall, and an 8th heaven of the honorable realm. Every piece of news shocked the crowd. Ding Xian and the rest smiled contentedly. Finally, someone had entered the 8th heaven of the honorable realm. This made them heave a sigh of relief. In fact, some people found it strange, because the Immortal Martial Academy was also known as a king-level force. However, people like Dugu Outyin and Li Yunfei were still weaker than the core disciples of the king clans. However, this didn't affect the Immortal Martial Academy's status. Dugu Outyin and the rest were still too young. The ones who could be compared to the core disciples of the king clans were people like Meng Tian. These people were very young and talented. However, according to the Academy's rules, they couldn't become disciples of the Academy and could only stay in the punishment hall. However, in terms of age, talent, and cultivation, these people could definitely compete with the core disciples of the other king clans. After Meng Tian bowed to Ding Xian and the rest, his gaze landed on Lin Xian. Dugu Outyin, Li Yunfei, and the rest also looked at Lin Xian and were shocked. This was because they realized that Lin Xian's cultivation had also reached the 7th heaven of the honorable realm. Looking at his strong spiritual energy, it didn't seem like he had just reached the 7th heaven. His aura was even stronger than Dugu Ocean's. Among those present, only Meng Tian could suppress Lin Xian in terms of cultivation. This made Dugu Outyin, Li Yunfei, and the rest very depressed. They originally thought that they would be able to surpass Lin Xian after coming out of the secret realm. However, they didn't expect that they were still lagging behind. Moreover, the gap seemed to have widened. Meng Tian was also amazed. Although his cultivation level was higher than Lin Xian's, he still felt a sense of trepidation when facing Lin Xian, based on his martialist senses. This feeling was very strange. One should know that he was at the 8th heaven, and Lin Xian was only at the 7th heaven. No one would believe him. However, Meng Tian didn't let his guard down because he believed in his intuition. Junior brother Lin, we didn't see you in the end. Where were you during that time? It is. The elders shook their heads helplessly. Before they entered the remote sky secret realm, Ding Xian had reminded them to protect Lin Xian. But not long after entering the mystic realm, they would lose Lin Xian. Lin Xian was also apologetic. He thanked the elders and everyone for their concern. He had made them worry. I went to Pine Hall at the end, Lin Xian said. What? Pine Hall? You really went there? Meng Tian and the rest were shocked. The elders were also covered in cold sweat. Although they didn't go to Pine Hall, they knew a thing or two about the situation there. They didn't expect Lin Xian to go to such a dangerous place. Junior brother Lin is indeed bold. Meng Tian was shocked. He had hesitated for a long time before, but he didn't go in the end. Not only Meng Tian, but Dugu Outyin and Li Yunfei were also surprised. The surrounding disciples were at a loss. Pine Hall? What is that place? Is it dangerous? It seems quite dangerous. Didn't you see that even senior brother Meng Tian was full of praise? It can't be. Is Lin Xian the only one who went in? The disciples of Dragon Sword Pavilion also asked. Brother Xian, what is Pine Hall? Can you tell us about it? Lin Xian scratched his nose helplessly and smiled bitterly. At this time, Meng Tian spoke again. Although I didn't enter Pine Hall, I know the situation there. Pine Hall is the core area of the remote sky secret realm. There are countless treasures inside, far more than outside. What? The core area? Hearing this, the surrounding disciples were shocked. Although they hadn't entered the remote sky secret realm, they still understood what the core area meant. I didn't expect Lin Xian to be so lucky. He actually entered the core area. Yeah, didn't you see that senior brother Meng Tian and the rest didn't go in? The group was envious. Lucky. Dugu Outyin and the rest had strange expressions. You're wrong. Wrong? How is it wrong? Isn't there countless treasures in the core area? The crowd was puzzled again. There are indeed countless treasures, but there are also countless dangers inside. Moreover, it's even more dangerous this time. Because there's a peerless beast inside, the heavenly netherbird. That's an ancient ferocious beast, and it's a peerless demon on the heaven leaderboard. What? The heavenly netherbird, an ancient ferocious beast. Hearing this, the crowd trembled as fear appeared in their eyes. Needless to say, the heavenly netherbird was extremely terrifying just by hearing its name. No wonder Meng Tian and Dugo Outyan had such expressions. It turns out that Pine Hall is extremely dangerous. But Lin Xian actually dared to go in. I have to say he's too daring. Junior brother Lin, what's the strength of the heavenly netherbird? Has it reached the 9th heaven of the honorable realm? Everyone was curious. They wanted to know how powerful the ancient ferocious beast was. 9th heaven of the honorable realm? Lin Xian shook his head. Ordinary kings are nothing in front of it. What? Even kings are nothing? No way, it's so powerful. Everyone broke out in cold sweat. They realized that they had underestimated the ancient ferocious beast. It was definitely an ancient ferocious beast. Even Din Xian was surprised. He did not expect such a thing to happen in the remote sky secret realm. Lin Xian was too daring. He dared to enter the same place as a king-rank ferocious beast. Fortunately, he was fine. Otherwise, he would not be able to answer to the palace of Ares. Din Xian was also scared. Then how did you guys escape safely? Everyone was puzzled. They could not think of how they could escape from such a ferocious beast. Actually, it's not too bad. With the protection of the ancient ferocious beast's remnant soul, the heavenly netherbird did not cause much harm. Lin Xian explained briefly. Everyone came to a sudden realization. So that was how it was. But thinking about it, it should be extremely dangerous. The disciples kept discussing and asking the disciples who had entered the secret realm. The scene was very lively. However, Din Xian frowned and looked at the sky. Lin Xian's heart was beating wildly as his face turned serious. The 1,000-beast cauldron in his body vibrated, as if it was reminding him. Recently, he had only used the 1,000-beast cauldron to plant a beast mark on the heavenly netherbird. Other than that, he had not done anything else. Now that the 1,000-beast cauldron was moving, it was obviously related to the heavenly netherbird. Did that guy come out again? Chapter 1239. Indeed, in the next moment, tens of thousands of lightning bolts struck down from afar, attracting everyone's attention. Over at the Immortal Martial Academy, all the disciples looked up at the sky in shock. Not only the Immortal Martial Academy, but also the Palace of War, Morone Clan, Merry Woods and Deity Sword Villa. All the major powers and clans looked up at the sky. The originally clear sky suddenly turned gloomy. Countless lightning bolts danced in the sky like wild snakes. It was terrifying. Not only that, the sky suddenly cracked open, forming a crack that was thousands of miles long. It was as if the entire sky had been split into two. Endless black flames poured out from the huge crack, covering the entire sky. The black flames burned fiercely with a strange aura, as if they were the demonic flames of hell. In the next moment, a deep roar rang out, bringing with it endless anger and violent power. Finally, a huge figure flew out from the crack, filling the sky in an instant. It was a huge body pitch black in color. Its black feathers seemed to be made of demonic iron, burning with black flames. Accompanying it was an earth-shattering demonic aura, and a terrifying pressure. Heavenly Netherbird, it's the Heavenly Netherbird. Damn it, that guy actually came out. At this moment the Palace of War, Morone Clan, Divine Bird Palace, and all the other major powers were shocked. Especially those who had just come out of the secret territory. Their faces were filled with fear, as if they had seen a ghost. They had personally experienced the terror of the Heavenly Netherbird, and naturally knew the consequences of such a peerless beast coming out. That huge body filled the sky, and a terrifying pressure spread out in all directions. This scene deeply shocked everyone in the Sky Martial continent. Is that the Heavenly Netherbird? It's too terrifying. In the Immortal Martial Academy, countless disciples looked up at the sky with pale faces. Some of them were even trembling slightly. Even though they were so far away, they could still feel a sense of fear, as if that flame could tear them apart. Too terrifying. Previously, they had heard from Lin Xian and the others that the Heavenly Netherbird was terrifying, but that was all they knew. But now that the Heavenly Netherbird had appeared, they realized just how terrifying it was when they had to face it in person. At the same time, they looked at Lin Xian with admiration. Lin Xian actually dared to stay with such a terrifying existence. It was simply too shocking. On the other hand, Lin Xian's face was gloomy. He didn't expect the Heavenly Netherbird to come out so quickly. This was not good news for him. So he immediately hid the feather and cut off any connection it had with the outside world. Otherwise, the Heavenly Netherbird would definitely be able to find him. As for the beast mark, Lin Xian did not activate it. Instead, he hid it deep within the Sky Netherbird's body. The moment the Heavenly Netherbird appeared, it let out a loud roar and directly shattered the countless forests and mountains below. Countless mountains collapsed and rivers flowed in reverse. It was as if the world was about to be destroyed. Not only that, the countless black rocks in the sky turned into black birds and quickly flew in all directions, as if they were searching for something. In the academy, Dean Xian looked at the sky with a solemn expression. Then he quickly ordered, "All disciples return to the academy. At the same time, activate the academy's defensive array. No one is allowed to leave during this time." Facing a king-level demonic beast, the Immortal Martial Academy immediately sealed the academy and prohibited the disciples from leaving. There was no choice. The Heavenly Netherbird was too terrifying. If they encountered it, there was no chance of survival. In fact, without Dean Xian's order, the disciples wouldn't dare to go out and seek death. However, the Academy's activation of the defensive array made them feel more at ease. Countless disciples rushed out like a flood. They retreated to the back. A formation appeared around the Immortal Martial Academy, completely enveloping the academy. At the same time, the War God Palace, Morone Clan, Deity Sword Villa, and other major forces also went into seclusion and activated the formation. Lin Xian also returned to the academy. He didn't cultivate, but returned to the courtyard to have a good sleep. Entering the hidden sky secret realm, this time was too dangerous. Throughout the entire process, his mind was tense, and he didn't have time to rest. Now that he was out, he naturally needed to relax. This sleep lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. After that, Lin Xian woke up with great energy. In the following days, the academy remained sealed. He didn't go out, but instead, he started to organize the harvest in his courtyard. Needless to say, the harvest this time was too great. First, his cultivation rose from the fourth sky of the Venerable Realm to the seventh sky of the Venerable Realm. Then, his dragon sword soul reached the eighth sky of the Venerable Realm. It could be said that his cultivation and combat strength had an earth-shattering change. Moreover, this wasn't his final form. He still had countless heavenly treasures. As long as he focused on cultivating, it wouldn't take long for his strength to rise again. Also, he obtained a primordial feather from the heavenly netherbird. It contained the origin flame and could allow him to condense a flame martial soul. However, he didn't plan to use it now. In addition, in the mysterious space in his body, there was a 6,000-year-old purple thunder divine bamboo. The power of thunder and lightning on it was shocking. What was left were various heavenly treasures. These things were kept in his white bone ring. There were two parts. One of them was collected by him. The other part was in the Pine Palace, where he robbed the storage rings of the War God Palace and the Divine Bird Palace. This was the richest part. Thinking of this, a smile appeared on Lin Xian's face. He reckoned that the people of the War God Palace and the Divine Bird Palace must be mad. With a wave of his hand, Lin Xian set up a defensive formation around him. Then, he flicked the storage ring and countless heavenly treasures appeared in the void. Seeing these things, Lin Xian's eyes burned with passion. He took a deep breath. Each of these heavenly treasures could make a venerable go crazy. Now he had so many of them. If these things were taken out, it would cause a stir in the entire Tianmu continent. Next, Lin Xian began to organize and put the same things together. This way, it would be easier to manage them. Spirit stones, pills, spirit fruits, weapons, armor, and all kinds of things. The only thing missing was a cultivation technique. Because they didn't enter the Pine Palace, they didn't get any cultivation technique left behind by Taoist Song Song. However, Lin Xian comprehended a star sword technique from the Star Pavilion. Its power was extraordinary. Although it wasn't as good as a real Earth-rank martial art, it was close. After finally organizing, Lin Xian sucked in a breath of cold air. He was too shocked. He knew about the things he collected. What shocked him was the things in the storage rings of the War God Palace and the Divine Bird Palace. Chapter 1240. Especially the storage rings of Duan Tianxing and Yin Feng from the Palace of Gods of War. They were simply too rich, even more than what he had obtained. As expected of an 8th level supremacy, he's actually so rich. Lin Xian even found a total of 10 silver leaves and fire phoenix fruits in Duan Tianxing's storage ring. Presumably, Duan Tianxing had left these for the geniuses of the Palace of Gods of War. But now they all belonged to Lin Xian. In the end, Lin Xian sorted out everything. Among them, there were 30 superior-grade spirit stones. These superior-grade spirit stones were extremely rare, and were usually only in the hands of a few sovereign families. The outside world could not see them at all. Lin Xian had 30 of them, which was already very shocking. There were also 13 half-earth rank treasures. Half-earth rank treasures were extremely precious weapons in the Tianwu continent. Every one of them could make countless supremacies go crazy. And now Lin Xian had a total of 13 of them. Not only that, Lin Xian also had a total of 5 earth rank treasures that were even more precious than half-earth rank treasures. Even a 9th heaven supremacy would be envious of such a good item. There were also many spirit fruits and spirit herbs. It could be said to be extremely rich. Other than that, there were also countless metal materials. With these materials, Lin Xian would be able to refine a crimson lotus armor. In short, Lin Xian had obtained a lot of things this time. Next, he divided these things into 3 parts. One of them was for himself. These things were the essence of all the treasures. As for the rest, he left them for the people around him. These things were of no use to him. But to the cultivators around him, they were priceless treasures. The last part was for him to give to the academy. However, the things in his hands were far more than what the academy had. Therefore, Lin Xian planned to use the remaining to exchange for cultivation techniques. Of course, there was one more thing. And that was the dragon's blood that the dark red divine dragon had always wanted. Lin Xian had to exchange for this dragon's blood. This was his agreement with the dark red divine dragon. As for the cultivation technique, he needed it very much as well. This was because he had only obtained the Star's Sword technique in the remote sky secret realm. Apart from that, he did not obtain any other cultivation techniques. However, there were many cultivation techniques in the True Spirit Palace. And there were also some precious ones. Therefore, he only needed to use materials to exchange for them. After summoning Wang Li and the others, Lin Xian distributed the treasures to them. Older brother Xian, is this for us? The group of people looked at the treasures on the ground and trembled with excitement. That's right, this is for you guys, Lin Xian said. Take it and distribute it. Let the brothers increase their cultivation and strength. Thank you, brother Xian. The group of people was excited. These were all true treasures of the heavens and earth, which were very rare in the outside world. They did not expect Lin Xian to give them to them just like that. It seemed that the benefits of following Lin Xian were huge. All of a sudden, these people became even more loyal to Lin Xian. After doing all this, Lin Xian made another trip to the True Spirit Palace. After handing over the treasures set by the academy, Lin Xian found the elder of the True Spirit Palace and told him the purpose of his visit. Oh, you want to exchange for the dragon blood and the earth rank cultivation technique? The elder was also very surprised. One had to know that whether it was the dragon blood or the earth rank cultivation technique, they were both very precious, so their prices were also very high. Ordinary people would not be able to afford it. Even those who entered the remote sky secret realm would not dare to casually exchange for it. And now, Lin Xian wanted to exchange for both the cultivation technique and the dragon blood at the same time. It was too shocking. Do you know the value of these things? The elder of the True Spirit Palace asked in a deep voice. Elder, don't worry. I just came back from the remote sky secret realm. I still have some treasures with me that are enough to exchange for them. Seeing Lin Xian's confident smile, the elder of the True Spirit Palace nodded and said with a smile, It seems that you have gained a lot from this trip to the remote sky secret realm. Senior, you flatter me. I was just lucky. When the surrounding disciples heard that Lin Xian wanted to exchange for the dragon blood and the earth rank cultivation technique, they were all shocked. This Lin Xian is too generous. Even Dugo Aotian, and Li Yunfei are not as rich as him. What do you know? He has entered the core area of the remote sky secret realm. He must have obtained a lot of good things. The core area? He has entered? How lucky! What do you mean by lucky? He has the courage. It is said that anyone can enter that place, but it is extremely dangerous. It can be said that there is only a slim chance of survival. A few days ago, the heavenly nether bird suddenly appeared. Do you know that it is that peerless beast? At that time, that demonic beast was also in the Dark Pine Hall. What? It is so dangerous. Many people exclaimed. It seemed that these treasures were indeed not easy to obtain. Now, everyone knew how dangerous it was for Lin Xian to obtain those treasures. As the crowd discussed, Lin Xian's expression did not change. He quickly followed the elders of the True Spirit Hall into the depths of the hall. There was a strong protective barrier that covered a stone platform. On the stone platform, there was a palm-sized jade bowl. The jade bowl was crystal clear and incomparably verdant. It was actually carved from a high-grade spirit stone. Lin Xian knew how precious a high-grade spirit stone was, but he did not expect it to be carved into a jade bowl to contain the dragon blood. One could imagine how precious the dragon blood was. It was only because Lin Xian had entered the remote sky secret realm and obtained a large amount of treasures that he was qualified to exchange for it. If it were anyone else, they would not even dare to think about it. In the end, Lin Xian used 2 Earth-rank artifact fragments to exchange for the drop of dragon blood. The drop of dragon blood was the size of a fist and emitted a scarlet light. At the same time, Lin Xian could feel that it contained an extremely pure energy. If a martial artist consumed it, it would definitely strengthen their physique, blood and martial Dao foundation. After all, in the eyes of the world, dragon blood was an existence similar to a divine beast. However, Lin Xian did not want the dragon blood for himself, but to prepare it for the dark red divine dragon. Carefully keeping the dragon blood, Lin Xian followed the elders of the True Spirit Hall to another place. This place was where the cultivation techniques were stored. In the sky, there were many jade slips floating, emitting a misty light. Beside them was a huge wall that was carved with the names and introductions of countless cultivation techniques. On this wall, the worst cultivation technique was a peak spirit rank cultivation technique. Other than that, there was a large amount of half-earth rank cultivation techniques, and even a few earth rank cultivation techniques. Looking at the wall full of cultivation techniques, Lin Xian took a deep breath. As expected of the Immortal Martial Academy, one of the top forces in the continent, there were so many precious cultivation techniques. There were also many earth-rank cultivation techniques that were incomparably expensive in the outside world. This was probably the foundation of a king's faction. Moreover, Lin Xian knew that what he saw was definitely only the tip of the iceberg. It seemed that the king's faction was much stronger than he had imagined. Thinking that he would have to fight against half of the palace of Ares in the future, Lin Xian felt extremely heavy. Chapter 1241. Lin Xian skipped over the top spiritual level techniques and half-earth level techniques, and locked his eyes on the earth level techniques. In the end, he chose 2 techniques: Void Shattering Finger and 9 Changes in the Firmament. Void Shattering Finger was a type of finger technique with terrifying power. When practiced to great success, it could penetrate all defenses, even the sky. 9 Changes in the Firmament was a powerful ability. When practiced to great success, it could evolve 9 ancient beasts to fight against enemies. It could be said to be ever-changing and extremely useful. Lin Xian was very satisfied with these 2 techniques, so without any hesitation, he spent a large amount of natural treasures to exchange for them. The elder of the True Spirit Palace waved his hand, and immediately, 2 jade slips turned into rainbows in the void above, and arrived in front of Lin Xian in an instant. Lin Xian did not hesitate either. With a wave of his hand, he directly put the 2 jade slips into his storage ring. Then he left the True Spirit Palace. In the following days, Lin Xian began to practice Void Shattering Finger and 9 Changes in the Firmament. These 2 techniques were both earth-level techniques with great power, but they were also extremely difficult to practice. Fortunately, Lin Xian had experience in practicing earth-level techniques, so it was twice the result with half the effort. Among them, Void-Shattering Finger required a special mental cultivation method to store spiritual power and use it at a critical moment. This spiritual power would be transformed into void-shattering qi and stored in Lin Xian's fingers. When it was time to use it, it would be used instantly. In theory, all 10 fingers could store void-shattering qi. However, this could only be achieved by the perfection stage. Lin Xian could only store it in one finger now. As for 9 changes in the firmament, it was 9 different seals. Each seal corresponded to an ancient beast. The 9 seals corresponded to 9 ancient beasts. Once they were used, their power could be said to be unparalleled. These 9 seals were Qiongqi Tianpeng, Dijiang, 9-headed snakelet, Juyan white tiger Hanwu, Huofeng and Songlong. Each of them was extremely terrifying. During this period, Lin Xian had been in seclusion to practice these 2 techniques, and had made some progress. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. The heavenly netherbird had indeed caused some trouble in the martial sky continent. In the end, it had angered a king, resulting in a huge battle. However, the heavenly netherbbird's condition wasn't good. It was often suppressed by the astral chains. Therefore, he did not gain any advantage in this battle. Very quickly, the news of the heavenly netherbird's defeat spread throughout the Tianwu continent. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief when they heard the news. On the other hand, Lin Xian frowned. He knew that this wasn't the heavenly netherbird's true strength. It was only because of the star chain that it was defeated. However, this was good news for him. At the very least, he wouldn't be attacked by the heaven netherbird for a while. For a time, the various major forces also removed their defenses. And today, on one of the battlegrounds of the Immortal Martial Academy, an extremely intense battle was about to take place. The 2 sides of the battle were Dugu Outyan and Li Yunfei, whom everyone was extremely familiar with. At that moment, Li Yunfei's aura was extremely powerful. He had also broken through to the 7th heavenly layer of the Exalted Realm. I didn't expect you to break through to the 7th heavenly layer so quickly. However, you're still not my match, said Dugu Outyan. Whether I'm your match or not, we'll only know after we fight. Li Yunfei was confident and calm. In the next moment, he waved his palm and quickly attacked Dugu Outyan. Palm shadows appeared one after another, descending from the sky and slamming down, instantly enveloping Dugu Outyan. A terrifying power flowed, as if it wanted to suppress Dugu Outyan. Dugu Outyan also let out a long roar, and quickly raised his sword to meet the attack. An extremely dazzling light burst out from the long sword. A sword chi was like a rainbow, as it quickly slashed towards the huge palm of light. The 2 of them exchanged blows. The momentum was extremely terrifying. After 50 moves, Li Yunfei was defeated. I lost. Li Yunfei retracted his hand. He wasn't very disappointed. Your improvement exceeded my expectations. If I hadn't entered the 7th heavenly layer in advance, the outcome of this battle would have been unknown. Dugu Outyan said as he sheathed his sword. No matter what, you're still the first on the Mystic Sovereign leaderboard. First, Dugu Outyan shook his head slightly. Not necessarily. We'll only know after we fight. You mean Lin Xian? Li Yunfei's expression turned serious. Indeed, he has entered the core area of the secret territory. I think his improvement this time will be even greater. I just don't know who's better this time. Great. I also want to fight with him. Why don't we go together? Sure. Then, the 2 of them rose from the ground and flew towards the courtyard where Lin Xian was. At the same time, in the punishment hall of the Immortal Martial Academy, Meng Tian took a deep breath and strode out of the hall. At this moment a voice sounded. Junior Meng, where are you going? A handsome young man asked. Senior Zhua, you're back. Meng Tian smiled. How was it? Did the mission go smoothly? It was all right. Although there were some hiccups along the way, it was completed successfully. The handsome young man, Zhua Donglai, smiled and asked again. Where are you going? Why do you look so serious? I'm going to fight with someone. Meng Tian said. Oh, who is it? Why are you taking it so seriously? Could it be the boss? How could it be the boss? Since I lost to him in one punch, I don't dare to challenge him again. Meng Tian smiled bitterly and said, "It's a junior brother." "Oh, junior brother, could it be Dugu Outyen? Why? Has he improved so much in the remote sky secret territory that he can fight with you?" Zhuo Donglai was puzzled. "No. It's someone called Lin Xian." "Lin Xian? I've heard of him. He's quite famous recently. However, he doesn't seem to have the strength to fight with you. After all, there's a big age gap between the two of you." Zhuo Donglai was surprised. However, Meng Tian shook his head. "Senior Zhuo, you haven't seen him before. You don't know that he's very mysterious. When he was in the remote sky secret territory, he was able to fight against the 11th young master of the Shen family with his 6th sky venerable cultivation. Now that he had advanced to the 7th sky venerable realm, he should be even stronger." "Oh, you're saying that Lin Xian can also fight against peerless geniuses?" This was quite interesting. Zhuo Donglai was also interested. "I didn't expect our academy to have such a magical disciple. I must take a look." "All right, let's go together." Meng Tian nodded and then set off with Zhuo Donglai. In the courtyard, many people had gathered. Wang Li and the other disciples of the Dragon Sword Pavilion were very excited. "Brother Xian, thanks to the heavenly treasures you gave us, our cultivation has improved greatly in the past 2 months." He was very excited because this time, he had directly advanced to the 6th sky venerable realm. It could be said that he had improved at a godly speed. In addition, Dongfang Xiong had also advanced to the 6th sky venerable realm. The other's strength had also increased greatly. Many of them had reached the 5th sky venerable realm, although they could not be compared to Dugu Outyen, Li Yunfei, and the others. Increasing their cultivation by 1 or 2 levels in just 2 months would shock everyone. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.